Take on Friday. My face was so red and just. In case you fall.
All right. So we are kind of gathering everybody together for our special council meeting on infrastructure. So we've got our live audience. So by the way, we do have snacks for any attendees. So might want to come on down.
It's nice because we're out of the camera shop too. Usually we're about, probably not.
So you're my special clerk today.
We rolled the dice and they're maintained.
Who's the last to roll?
Sometimes they bring up the table.
There's nobody in there. They came out there, they asked them what they get their way.
You include.
They lost my name.
You try other stuff.
So,
Just you,
What's the one there?
birthing.
I did see an egg.
Mm-hmm.
I
No,
put it in
they're,
one of the
it's the new
categories
airborne
for tax
incubator.
Well, I
It's
see
the new
a
airborne incubator.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're going to call this meeting to order. And
Yes, you.
again, this is the special council meeting of July 30th on village infrastructure. And Patty, if you could call the roll, please.
Couch,
Yes?
McLean, here, Heflin, here, Krieger,
Present.
Stoke.
Here.
Also present are Public Works Director Johnny Burns, Water and Wastewater Treatment Superintendent Brad Holt, Electric and Water Distribution Superintendent Ben Sparks, and sewers collection, stormwater, Parks and Rec and Streets, Foreman, Tanner Buss.
Okay. And even though it's not on the agenda, I did notice that we had two communications. Did you see those, Marianne? Okay, yeah, and they were from Jennifer Horner, I'll just mention them, and Dora Vodris about stormwater mitigation for issues on winter, and hoping that we could address that. And that is on our agenda. So in terms of reviewing the agenda, is there anything that the council members want to change or add? Okay.
I can't remember if we were going to add specifically something for broadband or just let it come in.
I think we were gonna integrate it into.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so if not, we've got two pieces of legislation, and then we're gonna, yes,
I do have one quick announcement.
yes.
I would like to wish Judith a happy birthday this coming Thursday.
Oh, happy birthday.
I forgot about that.
That's what happens when you're in your 20s.
Birthday is a long time from now.
See, well, and as long as somebody snuck an announcement in, I guess I've got to do one. So this Wednesday, again, we want to mention the Village Inspiration and Design Award, 6 p.m. at the Women's Park. We are getting to celebrate their 20th anniversary by showing how much they've enhanced our community. And yeah, so there'll be some refreshments and there'll be a nice little gathering. Okay, so on the legislation. Great. Okay, so the first thing is second reading of ordinance 2018-28. Patty, if you want to just read it in by title only.
I will, as soon as I go get a copy.
Okay. Oh, she was too quick, huh? I mean, actually, I guess I can probably just read it in. Approving a supplemental appropriation for the second quarter of 2018. Can I get a motion, please?
Second.
Okay, great. So this is the second reading, so we are gonna open a public hearing, and maybe I'll begin with, Colleen, do you wanna make any comments?
The supplemental is to add a couple of larger expenditures. One is the wastewater treatment generator that we needed, and then there was some curbs and ramps with the ADA that came up a little higher than our original appropriation, so we're adding those in.
Okay, great. And we did talk about this at our last meeting. Do council members have any questions or comments?
Colleen, are we passing this as an emergency so that it can become effective immediately?
I think it missed on the last one, yes. But this is the second reading, it should.
Yes, so- but you want it to be effective, like, as soon as it's passed, not 30 days?
Yes.
Any questions or comments from citizens? All right, and Colleen, I just wanted to clarify, are we making an adjustment to the Yellow Springs Clifton Connector Fund, or?
The extra money that came up after this supplemental went in, we'll have some additional revenue to book for
Okay.
that. And if we need extra expenditures, then I'll do another supplemental to increase our appropriations.
Okay, great. Okay, so in that case, Patty, can you call the roll?
Sure. McLean? Hensling? Yes. Stokes?
Yeah.
Krieger?
Yes.
Ouch.
Yes.
How do you choose?
Wow.
I love musical enhancement decision-making.
Yeah, that was very nice. All right, so, second piece of legislation is resolution 2018-29. And, Patty, I think we can just do, no, actually, we should probably read that in full.
Okay. Authorizing the village manager to forgive Yellow Springs Home Inc. for all necessary tap fees and zoning fees for up to 6 permanently affordable homes to be constructed at 113 Xenia Avenue. Whereas Yellow Springs Home Inc. provides sustainably affordable housing opportunities within the village of Yellow Springs. And whereas Home Inc. has proposed a pocket neighborhood housing project to be located at 113 Xenia Avenue to be called the Glen Cottages Pocket Neighborhood. And whereas a tap fee waiver will reduce project costs and increase overall affordability of the units designated as affordable and will cause any grant applications to be more competitive. Now therefore, the Council for the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio hereby resolves that. Section 1, Village Council hereby restates its belief that affordable housing is in the public interest and agrees to contribute a maximum of $1,600 per unit for a total of $9,600 in tap fee waivers for up to 6 permanently affordable homes in Glen Cottages Pocket Neighborhood. This contribution will be in the form of fee, section 2, this contribution will be in the form of fee forgiveness. Section 3, Village Council hereby states its decision that this is a contribution to the public good.
Okay, thank you, Patty. Can I get a motion, please? Okay, so Patty, I guess, well, I'll just mention, first of all, our village incentive policy, just so folks are clear on, the documents that were in the packet. So since we passed the village incentive policy and, Home Inc. was making an application or a request that was in line with that, it made sense to use our process. So what was in the packet were the forms that Home Inc. filled out. What we have on our table was the ranking that Patty did per our updated sheet that included, whether they have a diversity hiring policy and that sort of thing. So these are the most current documents. Patty, do you want to make any comments then about the process you went through or your chart, your rating?
What I did was I took the application that they had submitted and just followed through with the criteria. There was a separate sheet that gave instruction on the criteria and how it was to be applied. Ranked them based on their past history, their success at the projects that they've done. There was not a diversity hiring policy included in the incentive application, so I just put in A for that. They have no fines, bills, et cetera. So at the end of the day, I came up with a ranking of 3 based on that, because one of them specified which achieved on the qualifying criteria, they achieved 1 and 3, and I do not remember exactly what those were, but
Well, 3 is the welcoming community.
welcome community, yes. And then prior incentives, yes, because the tap fees were forgiven. And as far as the citizen impact, number of citizens impacted, I put 6 individuals or families because we don't know who is going to be occupying these. The new tax generated came from, and the development cost came straight from the incentive application. So are there any questions about that? The only other thing that I'm gonna say is that Judy wrote this resolution. I'm sure she copied it from before, but be aware that it does say that we will also forgive zoning fees, and those are not included in the $9,600. I just wanna be clear about that. The 96 is the tap fees. So I just want everyone to be aware of that.
So, if we vote in favor of this, are we also therefore agreeing to give the additional zoning fees, and do we know that?
That's what it says, yes. Denise, can you ballpark that?
$100. Say again? A couple $100.
Oh, okay.
Thank
Going
you.
back to qualifying criteria, I'm sorry, I was looking for my form. What is the 1 for? Qualifying criteria.
There was qualifying criteria that was developed by the Economic Sustainability Commission, and they were numbered 1, 2, and 3. And they had to do with whether they generated jobs, whether they added to the tax base, the quality of life,
I guess I'm wondering why they got a 1.
No, that's
number
the
one.
criteria
That's
number.
where, it's criteria number 1 and criteria number 3.
I can try to find it. It might be helpful to actually have the criteria like on the back side so that people know what they're. Let me try to find it.
Yeah, actually, that's probably, this is the first time to use it, but we can add that to
Yeah.
this rating sheet, what those criteria are.
I see.
But yeah, like.
They met criteria 1 and 3.
Right.
Correct. There were like 5 or 6 criteria, I think.
Because, yeah, it is about generating jobs, about generating tax revenues, that kind of thing.
So,
And actually, this is a 2-page sheet if you look at it. So we couldn't add it to the back, but we could have it as a supplemental at future meetings. Because yours is a 2-sided sheet.
Yeah, actually, maybe I'll make this a 1-pager in the future.
so I'm gonna ask Johnny a question. John, do you often know about potential requests like this far enough in advance for you to budget for them, or does it have a negative impact on your budget?
It has a negative impact on my budget. I don't know in advance to council that that's coming in, my budget's done the year before. So 9,600, if I was to take that out of the water fund, about half of my water fund on the utility, on the operating side.
For supply.
For supplies, because it's like I think it's $21,000. So just on this project alone, there was like $3,500 just in parts that I have to purchase. And then the sewer is an inspection process, so it only takes manpower to inspect it. But on the water side, we actually make the tap, they dig the hole, but we make the tap, we have to run the copper line to the meter pits, and then they install the materials that we give them. So yes, it's a negative impact on my budget, if I do not know the year before, so we can compensate for that.
However, these aren't gonna be built for probably several years, so seems like you would know, I think.
So the price of material could possibly go up at the same time.
Well, clearly, I'm sorry, you can.
And this is just on the small meters, we're talking 5/8, if it goes above that, the meters could range $4,000 is what we just paid for, or what Cresco paid for theirs is $4,000 for a 4-inch meter.
I'm a clarifying question though. You just said it has a negative effect on your budget if you don't know before the budget year,
Correct.
but this won't happen until the future, so wouldn't it be incorporated in the future budget?
If I know about it, I can incorporate it for the next year's budget. Correct.
So like if we say yes to this now, then it would be incorporated in a future budget.
Correct.
Got it.
And I'll guess it'll probably be about 4 years before these houses get there.
It's more of a, it's revenue not realized, I guess.
I see, future revenue, not revenue.
Right.
So, I don't know that you should put a number in then.
They need a number for the grant
Yeah,
application.
Because I just know that's what happened to you guys last time when we had the increase in our own fees, but now.
Well,
Okay.
what's the exact wording again on those? Up to is in there.
Well, and the other thing it has, is the electric meter is also, that's an added cost, that's a tap fee. That's the reason why we put in, I think it's $250 for the electric.
Obviously, this is a very positive for the village, with permanently affordable homes. And we want to help them with these kind of projects, and it's not that much money. But I guess the question is, should the incentive policy, why does it have to come out of that budget?
right, I think that's a good point. And actually, when I looked at this, I thought about that as well
That
as,
doesn't make sense to me that, I mean, it's far enough ahead so we can just figure it into the budget, but there could be circumstances where it wouldn't be far ahead, it would be in the same year, and we would want to do it, and so it just seems like maybe that's not the way to pay for it.
so I think then something we might want to discuss in the future is whether, we want to think about a fund for these kind of affordability incentives. Because that could also help us to, target doing more of that activity, in line with our goals, rather than ad hoc.
When we get to the point where we start looking at strategies for affordable housing, there will be various suggestions for strategies. I mean, we could lump them into an affordable housing trust fund, that's a,
Right.
but there are various ways to do that.
Okay.
And that'll be coming on, up for discussion in the fall.
Right. And I guess I want to distinguish this also from, for a while, we've had that economic development fund of about 120,000. And, I also think with this incentive policy, we should consider whether that fund is how we would fund an economic development kind of incentive, as opposed to an affordability residential sort of incentive. So anyway, I think those are discussions or things we should think about in the future.
Which, one other thing, I'm great with the idea of moving forward and knowing or suspecting or projecting for the future that this is actually gonna be future money. I guess it's a little potentially deceiving, when you say, okay, we're just gonna forgive $9,600, worth of tap fees, but it sounds like there's more money that's being spent. And if that's just sort of throwaway money, fine, but I'm talking about all the other materials and whatnot that Johnny just talked about, that aren't even included in the tap fees, or
And
what?
the tap fees and materials included, correct.
Okay, so this is the top cost, that covers everything, okay.
Well, that was my question too, because listening to you speak, it made it sound like $9,600, that there were actually hidden costs over and above that.
The 9,600 covers the material, the inspection, and the labor to do all that.
But but you did say the material costs could go
The
up.
material cost could go up, which we would have to eat that because of the labor, we know what our labor is,
Right. So to me, that is more of just, it's a difference in the number for the grant application. But I think ultimately what they need to show is that the village has buy-in, so.
So to keep it simple, the number we'll give will be this year's number, this will be 9,600. If it's a little bit more labor, fine, they'll be happy with the AR number.
Right. But then the only other thing I think that I guess I'd like to put out there is, as much as Homemade can be proactive in helping us to think about what's in the queue for the future. We know there's some other properties and whatnot. If that's not possible, but I know this request in particular seemed to come last minute, which is why we put it into this meeting. So I just wanna make sure that they're thinking ahead, especially now that we have a process and a review and all that too, so. Okay, any other questions or comments from council? Questions or comments from citizens? Okay, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and now I pretty much get to hand over the meeting to Patty and our village team. And kind of got an outline of where we're gonna go.
Yes.
So I'm gonna let you guys take over the meeting.
Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna say is that we're gonna be throwing a lot of information at you tonight. If anyone has any questions or wants clarification or anything like that, I'm happy to do an additional document, so that we can keep this moving tonight. And that way, that will help clarify in writing some of your questions from tonight. You should have, 3 different things, three different things in your packet. You should have a narrative, you should have a PowerPoint, and an Excel spreadsheet. Everything goes in exactly the same order as the agenda. So that we try to color code it, we're trying to keep it as clear as we can for everybody. So I'm going to let Johnny take it from here.
You gonna do the overall?
And I think, why don't you guys come down and join us here? So we got a chair here, we'll put a chair
I
here.
do if you want me to.
So,
We're clicking, I'm clicking slides.
oh, you're clicking slides?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. We're so far away.
Yeah, if you, I can if you would like.
You want to start it?
Okay. All right, so, I'd like to thank Brad and Johnny for the work they put in on this PowerPoint with me. And I'd like to thank all of the crew for all of the input that, is gonna be thrown at you tonight, because this is a lot of work. So, then if you would, we're gonna just start with the definition of what is infrastructure. So it's any village-owned installation which the village has a responsibility to maintain. This includes, but is not limited to, roads, electric distribution, wastewater collection and treatment, water treatment and distribution, stormwater collection, parks and recreation facilities, buildings and grounds, and then sidewalks, and streets was not in there, so we did miss that, so.
Roads.
Or was it, did it say roads? Okay. It's gonna be a long night. Okay, what is capital improvement? So the capital improvement is the addition of a permanent structural change or restoration of some aspect of a property that will either enhance the property's overall value, increase its useful life, or adapt it to new uses. So, it's never less than $5,000. $5,000 and under comes out of our operating budget. Capital improvement funds must come from each separate utility capital improvement. So electric improvements must come from electric capital improvement, water from water, et cetera. And now Brad.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is just kind of give you on the first slide some history on the lift station, and then what I see that needs done in the near future here. So the lift station is located at 405 US Route 68, just right across here from the Bryant Center. It had major upgrades in '91, and then an electrical upgrade in 2014. And that lift station handles approximately 75% of the town's flow.
I was surprised that it handled that much, given its location at the northeast end of town. So my question is, what happens to the other 25%? And where does the other 25% go? And where is that sort of cutoff?
It's gravity fed, so the 25%, usually it's on the south end of town. I'm not exactly sure where the cutoff is. I've seen it on the map, but I can't quite remember. But, well, I think it's,
Tanner can answer that one.
yeah.
It's basically Allen Street.
Okay.
Allen Street,
Yeah.
south.
Yeah, Antioch is kind of the dividing point.
So Allen Street South flows back to the plant because of gravity, and the rest of it goes.
So then everything else, even if it's south of the lift station, flows to the lift station. Does it flow, it flows gravity to the lift station?
And then it's pumped higher to where it flows gravity.
Thank you.
So this year, we had to purchase a new generator as an emergency. It was $38,720 total with everything. Putting a new concrete pad in, the electrical wiring, and we were able to do that in-house and approximately save $25,000 to $30,000 by not contracting all that out. The driveway was repaired this year, totaling $3,355, and it looks good now, but it may need an overhaul in the next few years, estimate about $14,800 for that. This pump, the 20 horsepower pump, everything down there has been replaced. The electric, the grinder pump, but there's 3 pumps, and this pump runs 24/7. So it's running all the time. And it probably has been there since 1991, and we spent $5,000 on repairs to it in the last 2 years. Looked into a new pump, it's $20,000, and the piping to put in a new pump will be approximately $10,000. So estimated cost is $30,000 for that. And then these 2 pumps are pumps that come on only during high flow. So when we have rain, heavy rains, these pumps will come on to handle the flow. And so these ones, they don't run as much, so they're in better shape, but it would still be ideal to replace these in 2020 and 2021, maybe able to go longer.
How old are these, Brett?
I believe since 1991, they've been in.
So Brad, just to clarify, because these are 50 horsepower pumps, they're too big to run for the 24/7.
They could run 24/7, but they're just bigger pumps. It doesn't, we don't need that big of a pump to run 24/7. But if we get enough rain, it will run until the flows die down, which 3 or 4 days it can run.
And the reason why it's higher when it rains is because our sewer pipes leak.
Yeah, rainwater getting in to the sewer system.
Infiltrated, yeah.
Which does cause overflows here, which I think we're going to, Johnny will touch more on that here in a little bit. So then the next is the wastewater plant, and it is located at 3835 Grinnell Road. There was major upgrades in 1988 and 2012. The equipment and buildings have been well maintained, but minor improvements are needed. This is, for instance, one of them that was not done in the 2012 upgrade. You can see the concrete starting to kind of chip away there at a tank. This year, I've got a guy coming in to replace that, to fix that, some of those spots, and some sidewalks. Cost of $7,000, but we probably want to budget yearly to kind of repair and maintain some of the other. This next slide is more for the sewer collection system. What this is and we put it on the wastewater plant because it just makes sense to build it at the plant, so then the water that's used, or the sewer water that's cleaned out with the back truck, can just flow to the plant from right there. It's something that we really need to do to clean our sewers, get in a routine, but we're unable to because we have nowhere to dump the cleanings. I've looked into it, so there's a couple different options. It really just depends on what engineering firm you would hire, and if they would re-engineer something that's already at the plant that we can reuse, or build something new in an open spot at the plant. That's why the cost range is so much. This,
Yeah, I've got a question.
So, this is to clean, we're talking about cleaning the sewers.
yes,
And do we presently clean the sewers?
We have cleaned a couple since November, but this is also if we have to, we have a clog or something, that we have to hydro excavate and suck it out, then what we have to do now, or what we do, is we'll take and dump it in a manhole on Corey Street, block traffic, because it's gotta go back to Brad's plant, we just can't take it and dump it anywhere. And technically, because there is sewage that's running through that truck, everything that we hydro excavate for water leaks, for holes and all that, has to be dumped on a pad and then discarded because it's contaminated soil.
so what we would do is dump it, the water would then flow into our plant, and then the solids that come off, we would scoop up and put it in the dumpster, basically, after it dries on the pad.
But is it your intention, Johnny, to start a regular sewer
Yes,
cleaning program?
absolutely.
Or line
Absolutely.
cleaning?
So, option one versus option two, I mean, is there any, $40,000 to $90,000 is a big swing. So I presume option one is closer to 40.
Yes.
I mean, is there, in your estimation, a designated spot there at the plant that could be used?
That's what option one is,
Yeah.
is the engineer that we've worked with quite a bit, seeing the same vision that Brad and I had talked about, and he's like, well, we can do it this way. The other engineer didn't see that same, so he priced it another way, and
Pouring all new concrete, a whole new.
we're trying to
structure.
reuse some area
Mhm.
to be cost effective.
Okay. I mean, if we re-engineer something, we're not gonna have additional problems
No,
2 years, 3 years down the road. Okay.
The next slide, so in the wastewater process, removing sludge is one of the most important things we can do. I mean, we have to every day. And currently, we contract with Renergy in Fairborn, and they remove our sludge as a liquid. And I've got up there the 4-year cost that we've spent with Renergy, and that's gonna continue to increase as time goes on. The ideal thing to do would be to hire a firm there's different options of sludge dewatering, but the best case for us is we would press our sludge, remove the liquid from it, and take it to either a landfill, or we could still use Renergy. It'd be a different cost, it'd be lots better cost effective, because it's not just hauling liquid, we'd be hauling solids. So the cost to Renergy, I believe, would change than currently what we take now for the cost. So I just think it's something that, now to do this, we'd have to build a building, obviously purchase some kind of dewatering, either press, or there's different options, but it would be, the way to do it is to hire someone, they'll figure out what the best option for us would be cost-wise, and just best for us operating-wise.
I have a quick question. I'm looking at the spreadsheet, you know, and I mean, it's nice to have the visuals. Looking at the two things together is really helpful. So thank you for doing that other sets, because it can be sorted. So what do we currently pay for Renergy?
It is, well, we've got, the 4-year total is $204,723
So we pay out.
that we paid rent,
Total 4 years.
total of 4 years.
So it says 2018.
Yeah, it's been about $65,000
Oh, I
a
see.
year. In 2015, that was only half a year.
So I'm just looking at costs. So it is a pretty significant cost offset to invest in this rather than pay that company.
But we're still gonna be paying them.
Yeah.
We still have to pay, yeah, it would still, there's still gonna be other costs. I mean, you've gotta buy polymer or chemical, and then we still have to get rid of it. That's the hard part, and landfill is, I don't know how expensive that is. That's the study, they would be able to tell us what our best option is to go there. we were land applying it, and that's your cheapest route, but it's became so difficult to land apply, and we can't run the process properly land applying
Mhm.
our sludge.
So we don't quite know yet what our annual cost would be if we changed from having a capital cost and then still had those others.
So we're putting it in the landfill, it's just adding to the heap of garbage.
Yeah, unfortunately. Right now, we're not. Right now, we're taking to Renergy.
Right.
They use the methane from it, and then they land apply it after they
And
use it.
why is it, we used to land apply it, correct?
Mhm.
So why is that not possible anymore?
Because what happens is we have to, it has to pass certain tests. And to get it to pass those tests, it takes a lot of time, and we don't have a lot of space. So we fill those tanks up, and then they've got to be hit with air for, it could be 2 months at a time. When they're full, then that's 2 months. We have to remove sludge every day. We have to continually pump
So
sludge.
we were doing it though, and now we're not doing it, so I'm trying to understand what happened.
Yes, but we were not meeting our phosphorus limit. We had to buy chemical to meet our permit limit. The way we're doing it now, we're able to meet our permit without buying chemical and run the plant better. The plant is running a lot better now than it ever was.
So before Judith, it was sitting for 2 months,
Yeah.
before they could dewater it and land apply it. It would have to become a solid, it would take 2 months for them to get there.
Yeah,
They do, that would mess with the phosphorus levels that were required to meet by the EPA in our discharge. So then they would have to add chemical, which is a relatively expensive chemical, I believe, to make the phosphorus limits meet. So what we started doing instead was dewatering it to a certain amount, then selling it to Renergy, who would continue the dewatering process and then land apply it.
There are also environmental reasons for not just applying it to the land. And in fact, there
No,
are
I
some people
understand that. I just was trying to understand why we were doing it and then now.
and to land apply, there's only a certain time of the year that you can do it. So if we're not in that window, then we can't get rid of it. It's,
And doesn't it have to meet certain EPA
it
standards?
does,
before
standard
it can
tests,
be-
which was never, the hard part for us to meet those, we met them fine, it just took a lot of time. And during that time, then we can't run our process the best way it needs to run.
So when you talked about option 2 before, do I remember that when we met a couple months ago, that had some relation to like whether we did more on our own? Because we could build a bigger pad or something? Are you talking about that? or-
For sludge or for the backpack?
The pad.
I don't know, I don't remember talking about that. What I did was just meet with different engineering firms to get what they feel. And the engineer, like Johnny said, we worked with, thinks we can reuse a part that's at the plant that currently we don't use. And you just re-engineer it, and it would save us a lot of money.
Okay.
The other engineering firm was building on an empty spot there, all brand new stuff, and it would be a lot.
So the major cost savings, if we go back to dewatering,
Mhm.
is that we're transporting less stuff?
The major cost savings here would be, yes, we would be transporting it solid, so we'd be able to get more out of what we transport, yes.
Right.
And we'd have more control over the process for us.
Judith, another thing that, we's also having issues trying to get farmers to take it. If the farmer doesn't want it, then we have to keep on trying to find somebody to take it on the old process.
Yeah.
Land applying it or having the land applied, so we was running into issues trying to get farmers to take it.
We also found that some of the companies are kind of too big, they don't like to do the small stuff. So when you call them, they don't get here for a few months again, so we're waiting again. It just became a big issue.
And how many bags does Renergy come out and get at a time?
Renergy takes 6,000 gallons at time. Now that's at percent solids, that's 2.5% solids. We would get with dewatering ourselves, we would get, I think we could get, the study would tell us, but I wanna say like 20% solid, or even higher.
If you're dewatering, won't that water be high in phosphorus?
It is, and we have
You
a
still have to deal with that.
yes, we have a side stream process to deal with that, for chemical. That was included in the upgrade we did in 2012.
I'm just looking at the time and knowing that if we keep taking this much time, we're gonna be here till.
All right, so the next one is the water plant, which it was built in 2017. It should need no capital improvements for several years. We talked about budgeting money into capital each year for the future projects. The one thing at the water plant we do, I believe, want to do next year is part of our source water plan, protection plan. We want to drill a new monitoring well. Currently, we have 3, and it would be ideal to put another one in a different, a better spot. And that's the estimated price, $3,000 to $7,000. The water towers are scheduled to be cleared in 2020. Paintings and coatings inside and out. And that, I'm actually gonna hire someone to inspect them next year to tell us if they need done in 2020 or if they can last a little bit longer. But that estimated price is $400,000 to $480,000.
Can I add something about that?
Yeah.
I would just encourage the village to maybe go to the Arts and Culture Commission, use this as a signature project. Most communities use their water towers as a marketing and branding tool. And I think with our creative community, we could do a really cool project. Go, to the Arts Council, go out for some grant funding to pay for that extra cost of doing something like that.
I agree. And the other work at the lift station is the fence around it will need, there's some holes in it, and there's also a lot of vegetation that we plan on removing later this year, and then the holes in the fence will need replaced after that.
Well, that was the easy part.
Okay, and so, yeah, let me just reiterate, for the citizens that aren't here, if you have questions or comments, you can just keep shouting them out like council's doing, so.
All right, so everything above ground looks pretty good, except for we need some improvements. Everything underground, we need major help. Corey Street, I'm gonna run down through these and then the slides will be to follow. Corey Street, we have a 430-foot 8-inch sewer that has a very serious Band-Aid that's half off right now. And right now, the first estimate I got is $51,250. That's to replace 2 manholes and 430 foot of 8-inch and make sure it keeps running at the same time that they're replacing it. And that is actually located right there beside the community gardens and the Green Mat housing on Corey Street that runs down an easement right there by Paul Evans' place. Veteran project, that is North Hyde, North Winter, North Stafford, Pleasant, Union, Cliff Street, and Lincoln Court. They're doing a gas line replacement, and so what they did is they actually brought in a camera truck. They actually ran it down every storm and every sewer in those neighborhoods. They've marked it out. They have made it a colorful map over there in that area. Problem is, they've also found a lot of misaligned pipes, multiple breaks in the sewer line, multiple breaks in the storm lines, and dead end stuff that don't go nowhere that it needs to be done. Found 2 manholes that were very blacktopped over. Tanner and the guys have actually dug them up, put rings on, brought them back up above ground. Found one on Winter Street that the homeowner had put the sanitation without it working the right of way permit, put it in, and he had actually put it in all the way across the sewer lateral. And so we've had to work on him to pour it out about 8 inches so we could get passage through there. We couldn't get nothing through there, so. The good thing about the project is over there that they've got, zip drive. We know where the problems are, we just have to attack them and fix them. I mean, it wasn't the first day, they already found like 3 breaks in the line. Some of them on ours, some of them on the homeowner's side. But with that being said, that brings back to a point of our need for a camera to be able to camera these lines so we know when we need to clean them. You know, we gotta know what we're doing, where the breaks are, where the inflow is, so we can fix them and get them relined or replaced. So cameras, a big necessity for the sewer department.
Is that on here?
It is, I jumped forward just a little bit, but you'll hear me say camera quite a bit.
Okay.
We have about 20 manholes that need to be raised. Tanner and them has raised, what, 4 or 5 this year already since November. And we have about 20 more that we need to do. And we're ordering the material and doing them as we get time. But that's a big problem.
And about how much is it per manhole?
With material and all, that's, I think it's right about $3,000 for material and blacktop and gravel and all that. $3,000 to $5,000 per manhole that needs to be raised. And that's on the manholes that we can see. I think when we find the camera, then we'll find manholes that we're missing. The way it's already been done. West North College replaced the sewer line from High to Tolly. That is another one that Tanner has identified that is a major problem that needs to be fixed. And that one, Tanner, do you remember how long that one was?
292 feet, so we'll basically say 300 is what the span that we need to replace. It's clay, it's 3 foot stacked clay tile, has a big valley in it, and I'm sure that if you talk to the homeowners, business owners on that street, they'll talk about some issues that they incur. We check it every single Friday. So it's a part of our daily routine. It's a problem child that we need to deal with.
The top left slide is the slide for the Corey Street repair. The other 3 slides is where veterans doing their project over there, and they're right on the street. You can see some of the pipe broke 35 inches down.
What's that cross street?
That is actually Cliff and Walnut right there, on that, where the green marking is on the blacktop.
Is it Pleasant?
No, that's Cliff going to the right.
Oh, I see.
Here's where the camera purchase is on there. I put it at $35,000 to $50,000. I think we can get cheaper. It just depends on what system we go with. I know Seldman come in a couple years ago and he said, hey, for $270,000 camera, we'll even throw in a brand new truck for it. But we're not looking for that. We're looking for practicality here. But I put this picture of the manhole right there by Antioch Midwest. And when we started that CBE project, there was an $85,000 change order that come in. And Patty and I got involved with it, and I actually called the city of Fairborn and had them come out and set their camera down in the manhole, and they actually found this manhole. It was buried about 2 foot down. And so by us finding that manhole, we didn't have to pay the change order. They was able to hook onto that manhole right there. But, I mean, if we wouldn't have had it, they'd had to add a manhole, and then, I mean, the infrastructure's there, we just gotta find it all.
So it's just not on the spreadsheet?
It is not on, the camera?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
okay.
Or did we put that on there?
I searched for the word camera. and-
Probably not. I probably
Okay.
did not get that one on there. The small jetter truck, we have the big truck, and the small one is a pull behind for back right of ways. It has been broke since I've been here at the village. We had somebody look at it the other day that was repairing, the hose on the big jet truck that we had to order and get in. He's gonna give me an estimate, but he thinks it may be cheaper to buy another one because of how old that one is. And they still make the same machine, but it's just extremely old. So we wanna see what the cost of the new one is versus repair of the old one. But we need to, do one or the other. And so that price will probably be put in the budget for 2019 as soon as we get a way, which way is better. If we buy a new one, then we put the other one on Gov Deals. Now, and we just basically highlighted, until we actually have the camera and the ability to go down all these lines, we don't know the situation that the sewer's in. We have a great study book in there that's about that tall, but that's of the manhole. They didn't run cameras down the line. That was an inspection of the manholes. So we also can't tell you where all the infiltration's coming in, and we can't even start the process of relining until you know which areas are the worst and what needs to be relined. Now, we could start by cleaning sewers over there and this, well, they cleaned them for the Vectrum project. And so we can maybe throw in some repairs on that one in the next year. But we need to be able to clean the sewers, run the cameras down it, and find where our problems are. And we do the shared services. I mean, Fairborn's helped us out twice now. Greene County actually come in on the next project and they helped us out. But to have them here every week for on and on, it's not really feasible for another municipality to come in here. We're members with Ohio Rural Water, but again, they're not really wanting to come sit up shop for 2 months to camera all the lines. And plus, the other thing it does by us cameraing them, it gives Tanner and his guys the ability to know where every single problem is. We'll be able to put it on the map where our GIS locations is for everybody's laterals. We'll know exactly where the laterals go in, and it'll be a better system for us.
How seasonal is this work? Like, let's say you had a camera right now. How seasonal is it? And the reason I'm asking, to give you kind of my ultimate question, is I'm always thinking about capacity, and I'm starting to chunk these things up. This is what needs to be done in the remainder of 2018. This is what you're saying you're gonna do in 2019. There's a lot. I mean, we're only on row 16, and we're already doing a lot in 2019. So I'm just wondering, in terms of capacity, is it seasonal? Is this really feasible to do this all in 2019?
The camera is not seasonal. It can be ran, I mean, if we got a camera tomorrow, we could put 2 people on it. Manpower's gonna be the issue. And wintertime, when you're not mowing grass and when you're not fixing the potholes in the street and all that, that's when the camera work would probably be the best.
And the cleaning?
The cleaning, it can be done year-round.
Year-round.
It's just very cold in the wintertime, and you gotta make sure that your water's not gonna freeze on you. But we could actually do the camera work in the wintertime and start cleaning for spring.
So if you combine all the things that you're saying in this total package, this whole spreadsheet, this whole PowerPoint, that you're saying you'll do in 2018 and 2019, they're there because you think it's feasible
I do.
to achieve it all, if the money was there.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
It is a lot.
It's a lot.
We have come leaps and bounds in the last years, and a lot of work has been done in the last 10 months. So, storm sewer, first thing I wanna highlight is we need to do a storm study. We do have a storm study from 1991 that we laid on the table. I don't know that anything was done with that study, but Paul Adendroff gave it to me and wanted to make sure that I inserted it. I can tell you that we've made a lot of headway on the storm sewer infrastructure that we've actually put in, or actually fixed since November. One was, Kingsfield, that's actually 100% complete as of Friday. It took us cutting down a weeping willow, and we hired Majors Excavating or Major Enterprises to do the work. It was about 7 foot deep, and about 15 foot of the 18-inch storm line was impacted by a weeping willow where a couple of water leaders. I just met with a guy today from Duke that does foam application and sewer lines, and he said a full-grown weeping willow would take 200 gallons a day. And I know where he was getting his water from.
It was a beautiful tree.
It was a beautiful tree, and I apologize we had to cut it down, but we as Public Works, electric, and all the guys, we attacked that and tried to do it without cutting the tree down, and the last resort was cutting the tree down, which in the long run, we're gonna have, I think, about $13,000 in fixing that line, but the neighborhood won't flood like it was.
So, a few months back when the rain was day after day after day, the crew spent, what, 3 or 4 days?
This actual picture was a 3-hour event, that flooded the detention pond and actually come over the road. This was actually the second time. The first one that rained, it was actually another 3 foot deeper in the middle of the road. And we actually pumped it for, the first one we pumped for 3 days, this one here we actually pumped for 2 days.
But the crew spent 3 or 4
Oh,
solid days.
oh, yeah, absolutely.
Trying to resolve this problem.
Because what happened is this actually impacted all the way up to Wright Street and all that, so this was a major problem, and we couldn't get it to flow backwards. And we flowed it down to the glass farm where it's supposed to be. If you go to the next one, Ben, that was actually looking inside the pipe of the 18-inch storm. That's actually the end of the root system right there. And then the next one, that's actually a 12-foot section of pipe with 3 foot sticking out of it, of the root that they actually took out of the tile. The picture on the right is actually Wright Street that was flooded at the same time as Kingsfield was. And the street department and I'll just say Public Works Department, we actually dug up, found out where it was. A homeowner had dug through the storm system years ago when the houses were built over there and did not replace it, so the water could not pass. And so we was able to fix that one and get it done. Can you back up one? The one on the left is actually above, if you've seen the barricades on Dayton Street, this is above that big 48-inch storm that goes under Dayton Street. And we have a potential problem there that we have to saw cut it up and repair it. We don't know if they're gonna go on top of the culvert, but we barricaded it off. We're gonna try to get to it in the next week or so to repair it. But it appeared after the major rains come through. The top 2 slides is Orton Road. When we get the massive amount of rainfall that we've been getting, what it does is it comes down the property on the right-hand picture up there, goes underneath that driveway, goes underneath Orton, and village staff a couple of years ago couldn't find where the problem was, so they actually dug a hole beside the guy's shed, and that way the water would divert. Problem was, they ran backwards and into his garage. And so we've dealt with this 3 times. We actually, the bucket and the hose in there is actually an electric pump. So when we have large rainfalls, we have to go out there and plug in that pump with a generator to get it off of the property so we don't flood his garage anymore. We still have to address that. We're just trying to get them one at a time, the most priorities first. The bottom one is Rice Road, and everything drains from Allen, from Dayton, from Xenia Avenue, it drains to down where Brad's plan is. And this is right across the street from, Paul Avendroth's property. What happens is everything collects and goes over top of that storm, and it will flood, and it'll be up and over the road before you know it. So we're trying to work with Paul to come up with different avenues. We've done some things, he's done some things. But we're probably gonna have to reshape a driveway and put a tile underneath of it to where if that does overfill, that water would divert and go down the road a little bit, where the drain tile goes across Rice Road. So I've covered Wright Street, was the one that we fixed, estimated we had about $2,000 in that. Dayton, it's unknown, at this time what we have to do. Orton was the one for the sump pump, and it's gonna take us a while to find that one, because we're gonna have to try to stick a push camera or something, because it was 2 6-inch tiles that go under people's property, so it could be somebody's got fence posts in it, we just don't know yet. So, and they could be blocked for years, so we might be just trying to dig in new stuff to try to divert the water. Rice Road, I really think once the study gets done, they'll be able to tell us how to address it properly, to be able to divert the water from flooding out the properties that it is. But a lot of it is when it comes down through, it collects everything from President Street and brings it right down and sets it right on top of that manhole. And so we've even thought about trying to build some kind of a beehive to where there's still water in it, but we're only talking that much and it's over the road, so we don't know how to address that one at this time.
Can I make a suggestion to consider during the study? I'm a big proponent of bioswales and natural drainage swales as opposed to pipes.
Correct.
Most civil engineering groups that do studies are looking to put pipes in, not take pipes out, but that's a policy issue. You know, if we make it clear that we're interested in doing that as a first priority, then I think there's money there, but it's certainly not the prevailing rule of thumb.
Right, but I also say from us having to make sure all the tiles are clean, if it's in a swell, you'll be able to see it. You know, so I agree with you 100% on that one.
Well, and the hard part about that one is it's in the middle of the woods.
Yes.
The
It's
property
on my
where our catch basin sits is a heavily wooded lot. And if the trees didn't exist in such a close proximity to our catch basin, that we wouldn't even be talking about this.
Yeah.
Because somebody's tried to take care of the problem before, and they fought with conventional methods. Well, now, all we're doing is every time it rains, sometimes we have to put on our waders, but every single time we get wet, and it inevitably clogs back up because there's just too many trees there. And there is a swale that goes around and that we could utilize. But we, far from taking trees out or piping it, are really two options.
On that particular one.
On that particular one, and the one on Orton as well, I think that there's a possible potential for a swale, and I agree with you, I think that they're great, I think that it's natural and they work well.
Because that's actually on Orton, we're actually pumping it from one location onto somebody else's property that has the swell. And she's like, put as much here as you want, but we have to be able to get it to that swell, so we're trying to figure out that plan. North Winter, I don't know what to say about this one. That's a cost to fix what we've tried to fix in the past. And Major Enterprises looked at it, and the best that they come up with is $72,377. If you drove down North Winter, the village years ago, and I don't know when it was installed, but they installed concrete little drive aprons and put a beehive right in the middle of it, and the water don't go to it. It's just
Waste your time and money both.
What's that?
I live on North Corner,
and
and owned one of the houses with those concrete things. And it was a total waste of time.
right. So we're proposing to take all the concrete out and put basically a trench drain down there beside the sidewalks and be able to divert the water down to, the corner of Union and North Winter. And then it would catch, Union and North Winter, then it catch into I think it's a laid up, limestone culvert and take it all the way down to the Bryant Center.
And this is the area you have the two letters on every table from.
There-
Is that have more drainage issues there along that street than other parts of the village? Is that a high, because I've never really seen water sitting there. I know you live there, so you probably are aware of it, but.
Yeah, where
I used to
are
live
you
up-
talking about the problem?
The 200 block.
No, I know where it's at,
Okay.
because I used to live up in that neighborhood. I've never seen any amount of water sitting in that area, and there's other areas of the town where there's a lot of
No,
water
you're,
that
no, you're
sits.
correct.
So I'm just wondering, is that a particularly
Um,
problematical area or
I
water
think the
center?
problematic part of that is what the village has done.
Oh,
I don't know how much more water you want.
We need to be able to eliminate that concrete and be able to divert it. Is it the most problematic area? Probably not. But it's one that we get calls on frequently.
And Judith, I do have pictures in my office that were sent by a former homeowner there, if you ever want to look at
Yeah,
them.
I mean, there's a lot of areas of the village, where you get a lot of rain, water sits. And so and then in a day or two, it goes down, 2 or 3 days, it goes down. So I just, I think we need to just prioritize those.
And that's the reason why I'm asking for the study in
Study.
2019, because I don't have the expertise to tell you which area needs addressed first. I can tell you that.
Well,
we
people
get a
have
lot
learned
of
to live
calls.
with it, or they put their own basement drains in. I
Correct.
mean, that's what I did, because otherwise
Correct.
there's water always sitting in my basement. So people, kind of adjusted to what happens in their neighborhood.
Correct.
But there's definitely a lot of places where a lot of water sits right after heavy rains. And, so I just, that's,
And I think that's where the study would help us to be able to address the problem areas, the worst problem areas.
did you see this as a priority because of the botched job the village did in the past?
I do.
Would the study also suggest remedies? Or
I-
that didn't?
I think so. The study would tell us, they would kind of guide us in the way that Ted was talking.
So we would want
swells
to
or
hire
piping.
someone who had that environmental,
Correct.
ecological
Because
background, say.
I guess, I was just gonna say, we don't wanna be making decisions just based on neighborhood complaints.
No, you're correct.
Because there's a lot of neighborhoods that don't complain, and they've got a lot of water sitting.
Right.
And so we don't wanna be making decisions
Yeah, you're
based on that.
I think watersheds are grossly misunderstood or ignored, and I think that if you look at planning in general, and you include watersheds in every discussion that you have about new planning, road, any infrastructure, as far as that goes, then it makes a lot more sense on understanding the confines of the village, and that's what I think the study is really gonna dictate. Because it affects storm, water, it affects sewer big time, electric, where rock is. Rock has a big effect on permeability and where the watershed is, all of that stuff.
Right, and along those lines, I do want to make sure that we are structuring a study that, is kind of thinking about phases almost, right?
Right.
So if we make certain changes, then we may find that we don't have those issues anymore. And
Correct.
so we don't have to get into some of that, more micro level stuff.
Well, and if you do it by, even this report that was done in 91, it has like this, I don't wanna call them districts, but that watershed, each watershed is defined.
Right.
So when you look at the problem, you look at the entire watershed, you're not looking at one catch basin.
Right.
And that's part of the study that really makes a lot of sense.
But I think if we go out for an RFP here pretty soon, we can get the pricing back to where we could actually put it in the budget to do the study in 2019, and that would actually tell us what we need to do maybe for 2020.
And down the road.
And the study might come back and say, hey, if you do a couple of things right here,
Right.
and maybe Public Works can do that in-house in 2019 to be able to help out a bunch on smaller areas, pick some of those that we can do in-house, and the larger stuff we can plan for.
Yep. Okay. Good.
next is streets, and as you all know, we've got a lot of potholes. Tanner and his guys actually got some hot patch, and we got some major holes replaced. But we need to get some curbs fixed and replaced. Curbs is what takes your storm water to your, storms. And we have a lot of them that are broke, we have a lot of them that are missing. Vegetation and the, gutters and then the storm are on the curbs. A lot of that is, we need to get taken out and get a proactive spot on street sweeping and making sure that that's done. Curb maintenance is the street sweeping as well, getting all the debris so it don't go down the storm, don't clog up the pipes, and wind up, some may wind up at Brad's plant, we don't know yet. We did do a study, or we did do a cost on a new sweeper. Fairborn just purchased one, it's $265,000. We actually contracted out for 2 times now. If I did the April through December, once a month for all the Xenia, Dayton, the library parking lots, the Bryant Center parking lot, all the thoroughfares, and then once every 3 months, we did every bit of curbs in town, all the residential curbs and all that. It's $12,600 a year. So it'd take 20 years just to pay off the street sweeper that if we bought a brand new one, and that don't include maintenance, don't include manpower. Right now Tanner meets up with a guy at 5 o'clock in the morning, they blow downtown, he sweeps it, then Tanner goes on about his way, and the guy already knows the route, and he just, and when he needs water, he'll call Tanner. So we really think contracting the sweeping out is the way to go. It does not make sense to have a $265,000 truck out there if you don't have the staff to put it in every day, and you're not gonna.
So that's what we have been doing, contracting it out?
We have done it the last 2 months, but other than that, we have not been proactive because the street sweeper that we have, is not repairable. It's not worked for a couple of years. It's not worked correctly since I've been here, but then they had it repaired, but it won't even create a vacuum because the drum was so bad. And, actually the sweeper contractor used it, it's the same brand, the sweeper. And he said in order to get that one fixed, they would have to trailer it to Waco, Texas. And by the time you repaired it, you go buy a new one. So, it won't pass DOT and it won't create a vacuum to be able to even suck up the leaves in the street if you wanted it to. West South College, I have a price to do just some repairs, and they're on the slides. Go forward a little bit. So there's some of the potholes and some of the vegetation that's actually on West South, no, that's on Dayton Street.
Yeah, that's Dayton.
That's Dayton Street, go on one forward for the minute. Okay, so Kurt, yeah, that's West South College there too, and then that's, the curb repairs and all that I have planned for West South College is driven by complaints, plus a lot of sidewalks that are, some of it's missing. And so I went down through there, we have 2 big sections of gutters, or the gutters missing, curbs, going into some people's driveway, that's our responsibility. We have water main break evidently prior to 2014, it's never been fixed. They took out a section of curb and dug up the sidewalk and they never replaced it. So $3,894 is just to repair some of what's bad on West South College Street.
I'm sorry, I've got a question. Some streets, usually on the right there, there's no curbs, it's just a little street without a curb. And some streets have curbs, and are we putting new curbs in, or are we just?
The only place that we would put new curbs is if there's existing curbs that are bad. And I think I have, is there another slide on that?
Does it ever make sense just to not to?
Where there's actually storm, you actually need a curb.
Yeah.
And if you look, that's actually Xenia Avenue right outside of the Bryant Center, the two slides on the right. And there's a storm there, you got good curve on this side, but on the other side, every bit of the curve's missing, that's what's on the other side. So it doesn't funnel to the storm, it's a bad situation. And, that's Railroad Street, where those are huge potholes.
I guess I just wondered if there's ever times where it makes sense to not put the curb back in.
If there's storm there, we do need to put the curb back. If there's no storm and we can create swells like we did on Springs Way, then that's what because we eliminated this curbing on Springs Way going back to Cresco and went with swells instead of curbs.
I would just like to add about the street sweeper, that when the vegetation gets in, I'm sure everybody knows this, but you may not be thinking about it. When the vegetation gets into that crack between where the curb ends and the street starts, then it starts deteriorating your curb in your street. So that's the reason that you want to get that vegetation out of there on a fairly regular basis, is to keep it from taking the curbs in the streets
Does
deteriorating.
the sweeper do that? Does it remove it? the
As
vegetation?
long as the vegetation's somewhat removed, we'd have to do it manually, and then the sweeper would take out all the new stuff. The way that it is now, it wouldn't, if you back up one slide, then
Yeah, one they did.
it wouldn't, we've already swept that once and it didn't take it out, the big vegetation like that, so we would either have to go pull it out. We even talked about taking weed eater and then burning what's existing to try to start on a better path to be able to maintain it. Railroad Street is scheduled to be blacktop. We actually are meeting with the blacktop company next week and setting up a schedule for when they come in to do it. It'll probably be, we're gonna try to push it back to September as well. We're gonna try to blacktop the Bryant Center, Railroad Street, and Corey from Dayton Street to Xenia, from Xenia to the Glens entrance.
And I thought there was one more, is Cliff Street on there?
No. Cliff's already done.
Yeah.
So it's done.
I thought there was one more.
The streets department, I put this slide in here because they're in need of some equipment. Some of it can be leased, the Bobcat can be leased. The Bobcat that we have, is an older one. The buckets are pretty shot, but we can probably weld them up and make them last. But if we go with Brad's, press system, what we talked about, he wouldn't be using it every day. We could actually take that one out there, let him use it to empty into the dumpsters, and then we could lease another one that we can adapt some machines to. The Bobcat is pretty universal right now. They actually got one that is a great saw that you can rent or lease, and it'll saw the street, so you can fix your manholes. They got trenching aspects, they got anything you want to go on a Bobcat now. So that's one thing. The hot box, we're hoping to try to get repaired this year. We're gonna have to send it out. Right now it is either cold or it's extremely hot. There's no temperature setting, it's a full bore. If it's on, there's no regulating it. The dump trucks, that's stuff that can be done, in the next year or so. Truck 30 is the one that Tanner used to drive, and the bed, you can see right through it. So we need to get a new bed on that one. Versus buying a new truck, it's a nice truck. We maintain it, it's DOT inspected, but we need to get another bed on it. We can go with a regular bed, stainless bed, we're gonna figure that when we price them. Stainless is what the new truck come with, the 2015 truck, and, you know, it's there for life. I mean, but you pay for the cost up front. So we need to get an estimate. We're thinking about 16,000 if we went with the stainless bed on that one. The new dump truck was brought in with the 1980s plow style on it. It is only one way if you want to manually, if you want to turn it. You go out there, you pull a pin, you have to take 2 men and a boy and a Bobcat and flip the blade. The truck's set up for 100% electronic, flop blades and this and that, but It was not ordered that way. Matter of fact, they closed down the line and had to make a special plow just for us. Positive thing is that we can take that new plow, we can put it on truck 30. And then truck 30's plow can go to another truck that we have actually sitting out there. But that's something that can be done, like we can plan for that as well. The crack seal machine, that is something that we do not have. We would like to buy one, to be able to save the streets a lot. When they start cracking, we can get the crack seal in there and try to bond it back together and make them streets last longer.
Miami Township has one.
And we've looked at it, and it doesn't, they've not used it for a while, so we've been talking to them as well.
You mean about sharing one?
About
Yeah.
sharing one, but we actually think it may be that old, so we need to look at it.
But what about, if theirs is too old, then what about sharing the cost
The
of the
cost
new
of
one?
new one, I don't know that he uses it anymore, does he?
No.
He does not do that, he hires it out.
Hmm.
We have,
We could ask them if they
We
would
can.
give us to them.
well, if it's too old of a machine for,
Well, I mean, but in the
Correct.
purchase of the new one.
Correct.
They
We
would like to
can.
share it.
As opposed to hiring it out, maybe they
Correct.
would change their.
yes.
And back to Railroad Street, so is it gonna be paved the same way that Cliff Street was?
It is.
Okay.
Can I make a comment about Railroad Street? I am particularly concerned about fire suppression to the Herb Lumber Building, the old Herb Lumber Building. Right now, it's being used for storage. It's all wood, it's a tinder box. The closest fire hydrant to put that fire out is on Dayton Street. And if anybody ever wants to convert those buildings down Cliff Street into a viable business, they've got to be sprinkled. So I would wonder, I think that during all of these studies, there should be something to try to get a loop from Dayton Street to Cliff Street, up Cliff Street to Walnut, and get that loop put in. And then that also affects stormwater, because stormwater comes down in sheets from North College, from Winter, all the way down, and that's part of the reason why Railroad Street just doesn't stay paved. If the water builds up, it gets under that really bad soil where the old grain elevator was, and it's popping it all up. So if the stormwater is looked at in a study, and to get that underneath the bike path onto the Bryan Center lot, all the way down Railroad Street is something that should be studied at the same time, especially.
There's actually a fire hydrant right there behind Bush Works.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yep. It's right there by that building.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, but what feeds it?
Comes off of Walnut, doesn't it?
Yeah, comes off of Walnut.
Huh. Well, that's good. Is it looped anything, or is it dead end?
I think it's a dead end. I think it goes up there and dead
It
end.
has a 2-inch line feed, which is typical of a lot of the older hydrants.
It's a newer hydrant. I mean, it's not a newer hydrant, but it should be at least a 4 inches feeding that right there. It goes down and feeds the brewery.
Oh, okay. Well, that wouldn't be enough to fire suppress the Herb Lumber Building, but still something to look at. I mean, I always look at those road projects and think you've got to stick things under them.
Well, that's sort of why I asked about what our paving was gonna be this time, because of course we need to be thinking about our complete streets policy, right?
Mhm.
Correct.
Our dig once policy.
Big one.
Yes, yes.
And so none of these are on the spreadsheet. Is that right? I'm not seeing them.
How did we miss these?
Okay.
That,
We can add it to it and give it.
That's okay, I'm just making notes so that we can start running a total and not miss important things.
yeah, repair hot box and purchase crack seal machine is right there.
Where is it?
It's right below, it's the first one under stormwater, below stormwater. And then curb maintenance or contracts, purchase or contract street sweeper.
Oh, I see, it's under potholes. I see.
Right.
Thank you.
The brine and the beet juice, the 2015 truck actually come with a system, no, that was your truck, Andy, 2000, the truck 30's got the brine system on it.
Yes.
It actually has a V-box plow, or V-box salt box in the back that we can add this, brine or beet juice to, that will make the salt last longer, that's coming out of truck 30. But in the same sense, I've actually talked to Centerville, Tanner's talked to Centerville and Fairborn, and we have another smaller truck that we would like to take some of the funds this year and make a separate system to go to that truck so we can pre-treat some of the roads prior to the event to try to save from throwing down so much salt on a snow event. So we are actually going to meet with Fairborn and Centerville and see what that cost is. If it's $3,000 to $5,000, we can take it out of our operating supplies for the streets out of this year's fund. And then the next one would be a V-plow for that same truck that we put back on the road this year. The plow was completely gone. The harness we actually sold on Gov Deals. And so 2020 or 2021, we're thinking about putting another plow on there to be able to have another plow available for the snow.
Johnny, do you know, what's salt running a ton?
$72. We purchased $24,000 worth of salt, 320 ton is what we got this year. And it went up $10 from last year, $10 a ton. And we're getting it from Dayton. Can't think of the name of it. Dayton.
Morton.
Swap 4G.
Yeah, we're getting it from
Swap
Swap 4G, but Dayton, I can't think of the name of the company.
Oh, the salt company.
Yeah. So we're gonna take shipment of it. We did have some left over last year, so hopefully we'll have a little bit left over this year. But if we can do the brine, I think we'll be able to, because where we use the most salt is when we have the least amount of snow. When it's just a dusting or something like that and people start sliding, that's when we use the most salt. Because you throw it down, it's done, and then you wait a couple of days and you throw it down again. And so we use a lot of salt on very small snow events.
So before we jump into the sidewalks, I've had a request for a break.
Okay.
So let's take a 7-minute break. That's our official amount of time for whatever reason.
That's so funny.
I know, I wanted to get it changed, but we didn't.
It's the number of completion.
It really is.
You know, I was thinking, oh, it's just a term.
No, it,
But aren't you excited about what the sugar is?
you don't know how it works. I'll be able to explain to you when I get
But I know they.
Get to stand up.
Sugar.
Yeah, and everybody's involved.
That means it's good.
No, you're.
I don't know. How are you?
Yep. We'll schedule a time.
I'm getting better, thanks.
Cookies plural?
Yep.
Some things that they always ask me, the other things. First of all, I sat here and listened to some of the exact same things said over and over and over.
20 years ago?
And we got to figure out how we're going
I don't.
not keep doing it over and over.
Yeah, quit on studies and start having action. That's the reason why we're here.
We're talking about infiltration of the sewer system. That's the oldest song in this town. You're doing a pretty face to be on camera.
I don't want it.
So everybody knows who's talking?
Hey,
What's that, man?
That's for you guys, that's for the workers, not the drones here.
Yeah, I can't think of what's under all
You all right,
the
Richard?
older part of
What?
town.
You doing all right?
That
I
way.
am doing okay.
Staying out of trouble?
Project area.
Now, if I told you I'm doing all right, I can't tell you that I'm also staying out.
That's
Although
true.
sometimes older
True.
is
You
better.
wonder.
Yeah.
I
No,
mean,
I,
sometimes they did things
my,
better.
my family, my daughter and son-in-law, and 2 granddaughters are here from.
Oh, okay.
And so that takes up a chunk of time, and then I was out in
How you doing?
Mexico, with my mother and I, basically, for that, but that was, it was all good. But anyway, I've had things other than my usual
Yeah.
stuff, so I don't bump into you guys as
Yeah.
often. as I might, because I'm just going out there
Yeah.
roaming the streets
Yeah.
doing my own work.
Yeah.
The best way is, you know, but,
They have so many.
sooner or later, I laid out the easement for Home Week, you know, the house they're building there, right next to the corner of David
They
High.
serve for 5 years.
And their sewer and water taps are on the street.
Yep. Yep.
I laid out that easement for them, so I don't know whether
And
they'll actually run those lines, but.
Okay. Ooh.
Last time I checked on one, it was like $275.
And you couldn't, it had to be a lot better to.
Yeah, I made this.
5 years.
No, I mean, that's why.
That's what I got.
Oh, yeah,
And they're gonna run parallel to Dayton Street behind that house.
But I put, that
So the town's gonna be on Dayton.
No, it's gonna be on.
Oh, it is gonna be on, okay,
Yeah,
that's good.
where it's nice and shallow.
That's good, that's good.
That's good.
Dayton is not good.
I told them.
Yeah.
You do not want to make your house.
Yeah, this was, when I was in Kingston,
There is an alternative.
there was
Yeah.
this,
That would be,
book
that's a nightmare.
store bar. They had this ready.
Well, it would be a nightmare.
Lion beer
Have
store.
that next to it.
Yeah, so they had like a bar set up, and they had beer, wine,
The
and
whole on Dayton Street.
amazing selection of stores.
What you guys pay for?
Yeah, for what I saw.
Chances are, since that storm has been in there so long,
I love to
that
just sit and
something,
read
you know,
about
the
it.
weather
Yeah,
made those
they're
I mean, I like to
pipes
drink them
all
too,
over the
but
top of the pipe.
And then I go,
And
arrow
then they
wine
would
and
plug
buy
it.
some new,
Probably wouldn't plug it.
because I tried looking for a scow.
Because the
And
joints, the pipe
not easy to
itself
get.
has it.
Really?
Probably has.
That was the only
The
place I-
joints in the pipe is
I
just.
called a few other places.
But it's really easy actually to walk into
And
the
my
pipe.
son,
Oh,
who's
yeah.
sort of
I mean, if you guys don't wanna do it, I'll do it.
the kind I
you're
got,
walking,
he said
it's
that's
a
the
bit
low
like
end
this.
of the
Tanner,
kind
no.
he buys.
But,
Problem is
that's one, I've been in there
$60.
before with other problems.
This is
That's
$24.
just a short walk underneath the
Yeah.
street at the end of it.
Is it blocked off and on? It's not even blocked
Yeah,
off.
we just walk right in.
I'll tell Tanner, because I know that they want to get that.
Karen wanted more.
At least
You looked at it and
Not much, so
And
I went through a few pages, but then I was like,
Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it's coming through,
Yeah.
so I could look in the pipe and say, I see there's a big cavity here,
Yeah.
or I don't see anything, and
Wow.
that effort is very
Yeah.
small
Yeah.
to check that out.
That is all Tanner.
And most of the time you don't have that opportunity.
Yeah, that's a really good opportunity to be able to get it on that one.
yeah, and ironically, on this trip, we ended up going to a lot of places where we were having these really cool signature cocktails. Like, yeah, just even upstate New York, kind of random places have really cool bars. So I was spoiled.
You can't do that. Yeah.
All right.
That's what I was looking for, so like, you don't have real numbers and then you have.
Going off the edge of the street, you didn't put the gutter in to stop them from going off the edge of the street. And make it go down the
But
street.
they gotta pick up,
So
picking up.
you have to, because the street has to stay dry.
But we need Johnny for the next
You can't
one.
have the ground next to the street really wet, and the edge of the street just drains. So if you've got the street, it has to
I hate
be
that.
off of the swale at the
I
edge.
did that though.
Or
Just
have
not
a
miss-
gutter that
Wrecks the water.
No, I mean like roads, like a road.
pipes.
They seem pretty bad, what's that? Having to sorting.
Yeah.
Medium high, medium
Yeah,
low.
the vegetation will all grow in it.
No, but, in a place that had no swale.
Oh, that would be
And then there's kind of shallow one.
So people, yeah, try to ignore swales when conditions are good, and then suddenly they're not working anymore when you need them.
I mean, it's something you have to be conscious of.
No, they, we've had some unusual, rapid, heavy rains that people aren't used to either. You know, it's kind of like, you know, you could put regular gutters on your house and it'll work 99% of the time, or you put 6-inch gutters on and it'll work 100%. Most of us are willing to
All right,
put
Spencer.
1% for the cheaper.
Okay, so I think we're gonna bring this meeting back to order, and next we have sidewalks. Johnny.
Me again. All right, sidewalks is I actually showed the slides this time. This is actually Mercer Court. I remember in 2014 when Mr. Bristol was here, they actually sent out a survey, and if half of them went, or majority ruled whether they left them or removed or fixed them. And it was 50-50, so we've not done anything with them.
Wait,
But
what was the survey?
the survey was, we would either want to remove the sidewalks or repair the sidewalks
On that particular
on that
place?
particular, on Mercer Court.
Oh.
And they come back, half of them wanted to keep them and half of them wanted to fix it. So that's where it's set since 2014.
I still have those letters.
So, but this is not the only place in town. This is just the fastest place for me to go take pictures, and I guarantee that I'd have to look there for. But we actually had a company come in and do a free study for us. And so then I drove up by Kevin's house.
Yeah,
And,
I can tell.
because I've been told that there's a couple up there too. And, if you notice, if you go out and look at all the sidewalks, if there is, from a 1/2 inch to 2 inch, trip hazard, there is a little blue mark here. We had a company come in, Precision Concrete Cutting. They actually did a sample for us at the pool and took away about an 8-foot trip hazard right there versus us repouring concrete and stuff. Took the guy, 22 minutes from the time he got his truck unloaded to the time he was putting stuff back in there, he eliminated that trip hazard. And,
How did you do it?
by grinding it
Just figuring.
and catching all the, smoke and dust and all that, so. And they actually, it has a generator, vacuum, grinder, everything he needs on the generator. So what they do is they just walk right down the sidewalk and they come up to the next one, they'll grind it, walk right down to the next one, and then at the end of the day, they push it all back to their trucks. So they come in, they did a free survey for us, and the picture actually, go forward something, look. So there's one in front of Mercer, and then you get some up there by Kevin's house, go to the next slide. There's a small one, if it's over 2 inches, they cannot grind it, it has to be a removal situation. Go to the next one then. So, the slide on the left is, prior to, before picture. The slide on the right is after they got done, how they go back like 12 inches for, 3/4 of an inch or something, I can't remember what it was. But they basically cut that aggregate and eliminated that trip hazard. So they walked town, they found 1,308 trip hazard locations.
Can I be the poster girl?
Yes, you may. And 81 spots that they can't help us. And they have actually, I have the book, it's in my folder down there, but they actually have them marked on a map system to where we can blow it up and we know exactly where every one of the trip hazards are in town. If we was to hire them to do it all in one shot before August, I think it is, just the 1,308 spots is $107,457. Now, they also told Patty and I that they could do it in increments if we wanted to split it up like a tree section, split it up into 4 sections and do it over a period of 4 years. The 81 spots, we would have to identify and probably go out for bid on 81 spots to replace them sidewalks. It could be anywhere from a 4-foot section to a 20-foot section. They didn't give us that measurement, so we can't tell you the linear foot of replacement that's needed. But my suggestion is if we attack this with grinding them and fixing them 81 spots over the next 4 years or so, then I think the village would turn back around and give them back to the citizens after we get them in a better position than what we actually took.
Every time the issue of sidewalks come up, I just have to say, I very much oppose the idea of giving it back to the owners, because there are whole neighborhoods that do not have sidewalks, but the main sidewalks are in the center of the village. And to me, it is a public good.
You know, I don't disagree with you, that it seems like
Yeah,
that's a
well,
decision that.
no, I know, it's just said here, I'm not gonna talk about it long, I'm just saying, you know, in terms of affordability, we have more modest homes in the center where the sidewalks are, and I don't understand why the owners would be responsible, so I just saw,
Okay.
I just saw that the staff had recommended that, so I wanted to make that
Well,
point.
and I fully understand that, but it's the
It's a
same sense.
community-wide responsibility.
Right, but it's a large expense to
Yes,
maintain.
I understand that.
Johnny, are you recommending any sort of policy related to trees, street trees, and, because that's really what's causing most of the damage and upheavals?
We're actually, council voted to apply to be a tree city, and I'm actually working on the tree ordinance right now that will address street trees, and that will include on private property as well as in the right of way. So,
As well as removal when
Yes.
they age out.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's just trees, I think it's also, a lot of people, for whatever reason, have planted bushes right beside the sidewalk, and so then they grow up, or the vegetation. Like, I walked down the sidewalk today on East Davis Street, I mean, half the sidewalk was covered. And so I think if we're gonna go to this expense, which I think we should do, I think we really have to have some kind of campaign to get property owners to clear up their sidewalks.
Well, remember, we have the door hangers now,
Yeah, we're
so
doing
I
we're,
think it's gonna have to be more.
well, I mean, but that's a start.
Yeah, it's just what-
and,
Good.
I'm sorry, and Judith, I'm just gonna say, the only problem with us maintaining the ownership of the sidewalks is we don't have a dedicated source of funding.
Well, it should be community-wide, the responsibility, however it's done. I don't see why a small percent, 25% or 40% of the citizens, homeowners should be paying for sidewalks, and the rest, and often, like I say, it's in the center, it's the older part of the community, and it's a lot of where the more the modest homes are. And it's a big expense for individual homeowners to bear. So, that's where the village, there has to be, to me, it's just an issue of fairness.
Johnny, I don't know if this came up with the particular contractor that did this, the estimate for you, but I see there's, $78 per hazard. And that's for the gross number of hazards. I don't imagine if I, as a homeowner, if you did turn ownership back to me, and actually, I don't know if mine even qualify, because I think mine are
Half
more
your,
like grants.
half yours do and half yours don't.
Okay, but, could I, down the road, just pay $78 to have them repaired?
I can't answer that, I could ask that question. That's something that Patty and I had also talked about is say you wanted to have yours repaired and you wanted to pay for it and you wanted to piggyback onto the village on getting a better concrete price, we can say, okay, it's X amount of dollars to repair yours based on the contract price that we got. The price is going to be more expensive than if somebody's come in here and just lay 2 miles of sidewalk down one way, because it's hit and miss all over the village. So when you have to frame up some here and pour there, and then they're charging you more, and it's like $45 to $50 a linear foot, because it's hit and miss, where 25 if you're just laying it and going to town on it. But I can ask that question if, they would do that.
Yeah, if it comes back to owners, it'd be nice if you had some idea.
Correct. About the sidewalks, Barry, again, one thing that, Tanner mentioned is, in November when, we started getting together and getting all this going, is it would be nice in the spring if we got edgers for our weed eaters. So what we did is on his advice, we found it, and so all the village property, the Bryan Center, the train station, Gaunt Park, all the parks, we actually edged all of the sidewalks, and we gained 2 foot of grass, or 2 foot of concrete, and we probably hauled, 5 dump truck loads of grass and dirt from the sidewalks, and
That come on to the side.
that had migrated onto the sidewalk, so even homeowners do that on their own, the sidewalks would get wider just
Yeah, I was
overnight.
thinking like if we had a week or a month or something and neighborhoods sort of work together and maybe the village could sort of assist in some ways, you know, have a community effort.
Yeah.
Like the block
Block
party.
party,
Not
yeah, I
our
was gonna say,
sidewalks,
block party,
yeah.
yeah, let's have a weekend party.
That sounds like fun.
It sounds like something.
You don't have to use the trim, you do a lot of work to it, and you,
Correct.
I just bought a brand new one. That's 10 yards back.
The bike pass, the next one is it just gives you an overview of the park and recs.
So wait, before we leave
Okay.
sidewalks, you said something about if we did this all, we needed to let them know by August?
For the $107,000 price,
No, for the one.
no, I'm sorry, for the 102, we have to let them know by August 31st of 2018 to hold the price.
Yeah.
Right, 2 days from now.
Okay,
That's not what, they're guaranteeing that
No,
price
August
until then,
30th.
August 31st.
All August 31st.
cause I mean, I think we should seriously consider this. And I guess, so one issue is, would this have to go out for RFP?
It's the only trademark, it's a trademark process, so this is the only company that provides this particular process, so it's a sole provider. So I would say no.
So we could make this decision at our August 20th meeting?
We could, I can confirm with Chris that as a sole provider of this trademark process, that we can do this.
I mean, I think it's important to, because to me, this is sort of like front-loading the investments that we spread out year by year, you know, the 30,000 or 50,000. So I think we should think about it.
I think what I would do, my point of view, is I think I would split it in the middle. And I would do the downtown area and all that this year before winter hits. And then I would, in spring, start the other half.
All right.
Get all these areas downtown done, get a lot of the bigger sections done, and then we can identify the other areas.
Can we do that with one contract? With this?
I think we could, yes.
Okay.
What
Might
that
get a
price?
little bit more, but
It-
All right, well, let's put it on the August 20th agenda.
They did say that they would work with us however we wanted to do it. I
Along
would
with
just
our
need to
budget
just
numbers?
call them back. So
Okay.
Colleen's over there panicking.
No, because I said, because I would want to see the budget numbers.
Correct, you're correct.
Yeah, what's,
So whether it made sense to
Just how
do
it
it all at
looks.
one time or spread it out.
right.
So, the bike path, Ellis Park, Gump Park, and the swimming pool is underneath the park and recs. The bike path on Corey is in decent shape. Where we have a problem is the Glens don't have the funds to, cut the fallen trees that are falling on the fence and on the bike path.
Have we talked to Green County Parks and Trails?
They actually had us come out because we own the park from the horse park all the way, and they wanted us to raise the canopy up to over 10 foot for that bike system that's just gonna be there.
Right.
They're not willing to go on the private property and cut those other ones.
Well, but I mean, now that they passed that levy, I mean, why can't we ask them to, right? Because
they passed the levy and we no longer, as a member of the trail committee, give them a stipend for part of the trail maintenance. That's all done out of the levy funds. But they do ask the jurisdictions to try to do some trimming and things, and they did call us and ask us about getting it trimmed up. Technically, we own from Jacoby Road to the north end of the village.
well, my understanding is, a lot of those levy funds have not been spent, or
Okay.
they need to be, so.
I got a
I
contact
think we
over
should
there, I'll
push
call.
that.
This on the right, is that Dayton Street?
That is, Xenia Avenue.
Going out to Dollar General.
Gotcha, yes.
And I've got actually 3 of them. The next slide, Ben, this is West South College and, Dayton Street as well. The next slide is West South College is on the right, East Enon is on the left. And I've got those as markers because I'd like to maybe see if we can get a Wagner does a bike path style blacktop and have them come in and try to give us some estimates on what it's gonna be to get those. I did not realize myself, when I was out taking them pictures, that the one on Dayton Street actually runs from East Enid all the way to Elm Street. But some of it looks like front yards.
Right.
Because it's all overgrown and they're mowing the bike path. So I thought it stopped early, I'm like, wait a minute, that's blacktop right there. So we have a lot of it that needs to be cleaned up and redone.
And West South College, that's gone, right, because that's, yeah, because that was we talked about this 2 years ago, I think, a couple of police officers were here saying that was a major thoroughfare for young people going to the high school, and, for some reason, we didn't do anything, but I was.
Well,
I'm glad we're
we
considering
actually,
it.
it was evaluated by the Active Transportation Committee. The problem is, there's really no good solution except what we've done with the Sharrows. Like, trying to fix that with all the trees and everything is not as easy to do as Dayton Street, for
Correct.
example. And I think that makes a lot of sense.
But are you suggesting trying to do something?
I wanna see what the
You'd like to see
blacktop
what the cost
experts,
is. Yeah,
would
I think,
recommend
yeah.
on that. I think the problem you have with West South College is all the catalpa trees.
Right.
They're beautiful.
And you don't wanna eliminate those
No.
too.
Absolutely not.
So we need to be able to come up with a plan by an expert on that.
Yeah. Well, I'd be surprised if they could figure out West South
Correct.
College, but the other ones, I think.
Well, on the one on South College, you wanna put a prohibition on putting trees back at the
Right.
all the
Right.
time.
Yeah, that's a long term.
You can't keep planting trees. When they finally go, you've gotta have that tree list so that we can finally repair that.
Right. And that's what
Otherwise,
Patty's
we'll never
doing.
get repaired.
Correct.
Yeah. Richard?
I think that before you do any repairs on any of those paths, you need to talk, I'll just say to the bicycle experts, those kind of paths are not good for cycling, even if they're in perfect condition, because they keep crossing side streets. And cyclists will not stop at every side street, and motorists are not expecting bicycles to come across there. They're not very safe. It's better for the bicycles to be out in the street than it is on those paths that are just off the street. But the history is very strong on that evidence.
And we did have that was evaluated with that active transportation plan that we're gonna get the final version of. So they came up with a treatment for how to work with those side streets if we go that route. So,
You would put some kind of a.
they would, like, for example, like an elevated crossing is one of the things they're recommending.
You know, if you wanted them for little kids, they were going very slowly and stopping at every street. But for someone that's riding a bike to get somewhere, they're ridiculous.
Well, when
Period,
this,
they're ridiculous.
right, when the street narrows, it's a different story as we get closer to downtown. And we have a lot of drivers that are intolerant that come through town of bikers, so it's not safe. At the head of Dayton, maybe it is, but anyway, so we have to use the active transportation plan.
Yes, they look terrible, but the question is, should we abandon them or repair them?
I think the active transportation committee is addressing all of those,
Okay, good.
specifically with bikers in mind and with biker expertise.
Yeah.
The next one's Ellis Park, it's on our list, and we are actually working with the tree committee to take care of some of the trees out there that have no longer produced green leaves. And I actually had a conversation with them, I actually gotta meet them out there this month still.
So that's bonfire wood for the Halloween bonfire.
That right there is not even actually bonfire wood because it probably wouldn't burn, that's all rotten it is. This is actually the back pavilion. We're working with Shook, they're doing a community project, and I've got them another price to repair that structure. It would all come down except for the post and rebuild that structure with a metal roof to last a long time. And then probably work with the electric department to maybe put some electric back out there for outlets. If people wanted to have family outing out there, they could plug in crock pots or warm plates or something like that. Try to revive that park. The staff and the public works staff, we have a lot of great ideas because we've listened to a lot of stories from Ken Harding. and talking about in the day when they used to have fishing derbies out
Yeah.
there.
Mhm.
And we would love to be part of that, but to get it to that point, you have to maintain and you have to improve some of those, you know, to where the little kids, Xenia actually has one every year at Shawnee Park. And they have 200-300 kids that come out, that's probably the only time they fish is during that derby, and they give prizes and stuff. It is well attended, and I think the Yellow Springs could do the same thing.
And the dog park would be great up there.
That's
They-
a serious statement.
It is a dog park, isn't it? No.
No, a literal.
Sort of is a dog
The footbridge out there at Ellis, that goes between the first shelter house and the second shelter house is on a real steep incline. Staff is recommending and talking to the tree committee about eliminating that whole system, putting in a storm drain to be able to pipe the stream right there to the pond that's not moving very far. And then take all the bad trees out of there, and then cover that with dirt so that that footbridge is eliminated. Another hazard that we have in town.
It's hard to make a footbridge. Some boards.
It's just some boards laying there with a
They get
piece
really
of pipe.
slick.
Yeah, one of the things that I can remember when I first got here, that the bridge going across the spillway right there, and then the ball got dropped, so we would like to look at maybe getting an aluminum bridge. They make these things that they just bring in and set down. I've talked to the tree committee, see their thoughts, and so we just need to try to find the cheaper version, practical version to be able to put out there. I think the one that was proposed in 14 was like $87,000 or something like that.
Recycled plastic ones?
And we,
Everybody
yes,
think those.
yes. So it's
We do a
60,
lot of those now.
it's 60 foot is what that span is, so we just have to make sure that, what we get, and we wanna be practical about it, and eliminate that hazard for the village as well. The front shelter house, we put it on there as a bookmark, it's got shingles on it, they're probably nearing the end of their life, and I'm figuring, $5,000 to make it match the other one, but we still got a little bit of time, we can plan ahead for that one, maybe in 2020, 2021, somewhere in there like that. I already said staff would like to come back, bring Ellis Park back to life, and maybe small playground out there or something, and some electric out there as well.
You've got plenty of power out through the park.
We do. Gulf Park, we have some issues out there that we'd like to take care of. I was approached by the high school on a couple, senior projects, and it just didn't work out on updates for the, dugouts. And, they was wanting to put gravel out there. Well, what happens when you have muddy cleats and that gravel gets out on the field, that we've actually spent a lot of money on it, maintaining and this and that. So, we would like to either put crushed limestone or even maybe concrete the dugouts, and we can probably do that in-house, on the baseball field and get some better benches. They just got some 2x12s nailed together and some 2x12 legs on there. But we can plan ahead for that 2020, 2019, 2020, somewhere in that area. The softball fields actually have no dugouts, no. Since I played on there, they actually got a fence up there, that it used to be just a backstop, no side fence, but so we'd like to maybe add some dugouts there for the girls and the guys to be able to sit in a dugout while they're playing, softball versus just standing behind the fence and coming around. Again, going out of ways, 2020, 2021, there's a lot of dates thrown out. I'm basing about $4,500 to put benches out there, and new fencing, and make dugouts for that area. And at the same time, Tanner, isn't that a need for that back field as well, where the little ones play,
What do you mean?
by the wood line?
We talked with the Little League about they're gonna get a grant for, a new shed, and then we were talking about perhaps putting in a concrete pad for them.
Okay.
They were talking about raising some money to redo their dugouts.
Do their dugouts. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and speaking of that, you know, as we start to get into these kinds of projects, you know, I really do wanna think about the private fundraising that the village could, you know, facilitate, you know, some of the installation. You know, Lori Asplin used to talk a lot in the past about, making it easier for people to dedicate, you know, like the shelter we were talking about in somebody's honor, so, I don't know, I mean, that's where my head's at with some of these, that I think would be great to do, but I think we should get community support.
Okay. We have some Musco lighting out there that, need to be repaired. I actually made a call to a Musco rep, he's supposed to be sending me the blueprints from when they was installed, and we can still get the parts that he says for maintaining and fixing these, and he's supposed to give me a call in a week or so when he gets everything together. One of the big concerns last year was slowing the kids down before they hit the poles and before they hit the backstops and all that. There was some hay bales out there, but what gets done with hay bales when they get wet, they're solid block ice, and they hurt worse than hitting the fence. So Patty and I had talked and come up with trying to build a slow down ramp to be able to slow the kids down, the adults down before they go into there. And I did get a price, from Majors, hauling her in, getting it all shaped, was about $9,000. I actually think we as staff can do that for much less price. There's people always looking to try to get rid of dirt, and we can actually take it out there with the ability that the guys have, being able to, flatten it out and mount it up and make it look nice. I think we can do a lot less than $9,000 and do it in-house.
You can also terrace it so it's a, visibility stand for the baseball park, for people to sit.
Correct. Be able to sit up on.
The bleachers they have out there.
One thing we don't wanna do is we don't wanna build a 5 foot high where then it's a bigger ramp to build it.
Right.
So-
A ramp to the ramp.
You can jump the fence.
Yeah. So, and one of the big things that, Ben's, or not one of the big things, one of the many things that Ben has on his list, this year is to remove that center light pole that's sitting directly in the middle, it had the tires around it. We're gonna remove that before winter time. Brad don't need the phone lines back here to the water towers anymore, so that pole will actually be out, this year. The entrance to Gaunt Park, needs to be updated and fixed, and we've got that on the budget for 2019, 2020 at $4,000. And I wanna see if we can, instead of re-blacktopping Gaunt, be able to seal coat it. I'm gonna call in the seal coating company that I had do the library and the parking lot behind the Subway, and see if they'd give me an estimate to, or if it's even worth seal coating at this point in time. If we got it too late, they may just tell me that we need to be re-asphalted. We're gonna try to re-seal coat it along with Ellis. I'd like to re-seal coat Ellis next year before we lose it too.
And that drive apron could be, if we decide to do the sidewalk in the sections, that could be
It could be part of that.
part of that when we do that section of
Right.
town, right?
Right. Yep. Swimming pool is on there because we just have a couple of small items, there, but I wanted to give you an update on what it looks like, and a thank you at the same time for putting the finances towards the pool. We've had a lot of compliments, it has been busy, we've had a great year for it. Been good weather and people are happy with it. There is some more changes going to be happening, after the pool closes. One thing that I know that Brian's working on is getting rid of the white wall syndrome and, get some artwork on there from the art commission and stuff like that. So that can probably be done by next year is what we're hoping. Couple of things that they want for next year is in the kiddie pool area is some more picnic tables with umbrellas for the little kids and the moms that are sitting out there with the kids. The electric service will be upgraded. We didn't get a chance to do it this year, but they want to get it done for next year. Well, we have to get it done for next year because it's failing. We already, Ben and myself and some other staff, we actually replaced it like 2 days before the pool opened. One of the panels failed, so we've made a temporary fix to be able to get it by until the end of the year. The controls failed, so we actually, they had to speed it up, and they got the new controls in last week. So the only thing left now is the main service that needs to be done after the pool closes.
And will staff do that, or is that?
No, that's being done by Triac Electric. The new roof on the concession stand and the bathrooms will match the existing metal roof that's over top of the other structures. The roof on the concession stand is pretty bad. So we actually, if my numbers are correct, will be under budget and 100% of everything done for the $150,000 that council allotted. And that's going above and beyond and replacing the roof on the concession stand and the electrical service. That was above and beyond the estimate, so we should be 100% done with the exception of just some minor picnic tables and some little things that they need next year to be under budget.
That's great.
Picnic tables, we built our own tables. We had a template, we built all our tables on, we just bought the hardware and we
Okay.
made it from scratch. And if you need any trouble, I can probably get a hold of the template and measurements. and
Okay.
Make your own, 'cause you can make a bunch of picnic tables in no time at all.
Okay, if you could do that, I'll give you my card afterwards, and then we can get together.
Can we also think about, some more shade, especially over in the, cause I know those sails are relatively inexpensive.
We're talking about the men's restroom,
Uh-huh.
for like 2020.
Okay.
That's what we're thinking over there on the other side. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm also thinking in the grassy area across, like diagonally across from that too.
Okay.
Right? And, you know, again, this to me might, you know, be a project where we think about grant funding or some kind of dedicated shelter, or I've been thinking about the lodging tax too. You know, I think that we need to think about allocating those funds in a way to get back to the community, so.
Okay.
I would say that's the number one thing I hear from community members, is like, wow, the pool is great, we're dying in the sun. So, that's great, thanks for thinking of that.
All right, here's the big ticket item. Water meter distributions, or the water meters for all the houses. We have a quote for $818,480 to put remote reads, water meters in all the houses in the village. That would be a one-stop shop. They would come in and do the project. Patty and I submitted for a grant. It's a 16% village match. Our side would be $130,957, approved by Colleen. We had to get the blessings from the finance lady. We're really hoping that we get this because I really think affordability, this spells affordability all over it. I know it's a lot of money, but this is real-time data, so if somebody comes down and wants to do a final read, the ladies can look in their computer. It's within minutes of final read. But one of the best features is it's computer and mobile phone friendly, to where if somebody has a leak on their commode, it knows the history of the house. And so if they've got a toilet running, it will alert them that they have a leak. And then that person can go in and try to find the leak they can call their husband and say, hey, the toilets or something. But it also gives us data to where if they say, well, why do we have such a high water bill? We can look back and we can say, well, at 2 o'clock in the morning, something happened because you used 50 gallons of water from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And they could be like, well, I gotta went to the bathroom or something, maybe they got a commode, maybe they left the hose on. We've had a lot of those this year where they've left the hose on, it's been running outside. Whereas this app on the meters would alert them at 10 o'clock at night that, hey, by the way, you got water running somewhere, you may wanna shut it off.
So you could put an app on your phone?
You can put an app on your phone, but if you're, don't have an app, or don't have a phone that takes an app, and you don't have a computer, what it will do is the next day when the ladies come into the office, there'll be alarms on their computer saying 316 Orton has got a high usage last night, and then they would be able to call in and say, hey, by the way, 3 o'clock in the morning, you had a lot of water usage. Did you do something? You may have a broken pipe or something like that. I really think being able to minimize the water leaks in the village and the homes will cut down the cost of the utility bills on this particular water meter system. Another thing it will do, yes, it will save manpower. Manpower will be able to use in another capacity. We would never get rid of the position because they still have to do some stuff, shutting off water, turning off electric. But they'd be able to do other tasks in the village that we are strained for manpower for. Another thing we'll be able to do is we need to be able to know how much water we're actually using. Brad's got a new updated meter at his place, and he may say, hey, we produced 500 gallons or 500,000 gallons this month. Well, maybe we only sold 300, so then we have to go and find out where the other 200,000 gallons went. And just by doing a short survey 2 years ago, we found out that, like the fire department, they'll fill their trucks, and they hold 750,000 or 750 gallons, but that's water that we don't charge for, and we cannot charge for, but it's water that we need to be able to write off and not try to recover funds for. So we need to be able to account for all the lost or given water, and being able to have accurate meters at the houses and at the water plant. And then Brad can say, hey, we produced this much, we sold this much, let's try to find in the middle. And they also sell another device that we can actually, in the middle of the night when nobody's up running around, that they can detect, you could have a main leak from 100 block to 300 block, and then the guys could actually take the leak detection equipment out there and try to pinpoint where that leak is at.
And I just want to say that while it is by no means going to be a final, yes, you do or no, you don't get this grant, the preliminary ranking of the grants is tomorrow. So we should have an idea of at least whether we are even in the running to get it or not.
And if we are not, then Patty and I will proactively seek other places to try to find different funding for this, because if I had to rank everything in the village, this would be my #1 priority. Because I think that's where a lot of the cost is going, because people do not realize what a leaking toilet will cost until they get their bill. And I'm guilty of it myself. I actually bought a toilet system from Lowe's, and if it leaks one bowl out, it shuts the water off, and then when you go in to flush it, you hit that handle, and then all of a sudden the tank will fill up, and your flapper's bad. So, I mean, a $17 item, and it saved me 2 or 3 times already. But
And if we don't get it in the preliminary round of the Mayo PWC grants, we are eligible because we're below 5,000 in population for the small governments round. So I would automatically apply for that.
Is that at the same matching
Uh,
levels?
Yeah, it could be at the same match, and it's a little bit different as far as criteria, but, you have to like lose out on the first round and be below 5,000 to be eligible to apply for that one, so.
It would not be no more than that. That's the number that Colleen right now, feels comfortable with. And so it's gonna be, that's the top match right now. Next slide is unidirectional flushing. But that's a big one too.
You're all right.
We are,
You're on time.
we are hoping to get this started. No, we're hoping to start turning valves. I won't say started because we've been working on it for a while. By the beginning of fall, to be able to start trying to get some of this black water out of the pipes of discolored water. I won't say black. Problem's gonna be is when we start turning valves, we're gonna have issues. We're gonna have broken valves, or we may have some broken pipes. That's where going to be the cost that we don't know. We're gonna try to do it as gentle as we can, but when you ain't turned them in 30 years, there's only so much gentle you can do. The machine that we actually bought, the guys have been using it, they've been marking out valves. We hope to have the GIS system up and running to where each one of the valves we go to is marked. The actual machine has a suckback system on it, so we'll be able to make sure everything's cleaned out, rotate the valves, and then when the higher water comes in, be able to shut these valves down, open the hydrants, and send the water out.
When they start turning the valves, will there be instances of discolored water?
There's a possibility, because what's gonna happen is the buildup is on the valve in the open position. So when we start opening that, if we disrupt that flow, or if we bring that gate down, sediment, all that could be getting into the water and producing. So we will have multiple weeks probably of the potential for groundwater.
So we'll have to do a lot of
We will have to do
notification.
a lot of notification. And we'll kind of be able to tell you that we'll be in this neighborhood in these couple weeks. And just, we ask for patience because that's what we need a lot of it. And the EPA will be on board, with the discolored water notices. There'll be drinking water available at the police stations. We can't do anything unless we have the EPA's blessing on this as well.
But I just think it's important that the residents and the businesses, we'll give them as much notice as we can, but as Johnny said, please be patient, because this is going to be a long and difficult process for everyone. And there will be discolored water because this hasn't been done in this manner ever. And so it's going to change the flow, and it's gonna be probably the color of the phone screen in a lot of instances. So,
And some of the valves may not break, but what's gonna happen is they have a seat at the top, and they've been in the open position for so long. So as soon as you close it, you're taking pressure off that seat, and so you may have to run it up and down, up and down, up and down to try to get the seat back. And you may not get the seat back, and you may have to find another valve to be able to shut that valve off, to be able to rebuild or replace that valve. We had one on, was that Lisa? Lisa, that they replaced the hydrant on, could not get it to seat whatsoever. And so we actually cut in another valve to be able to shut that down. That was $6,500, I think it was, to put in another valve. Then we dug up the street, and we was able to get it to reseat after working with it for a while. That we was going to change it out, but then we figured out that we could reseat it. So, I wish I could tell you that we're not gonna have no trouble, but I don't want to. I know we're gonna have trouble. There's also been a list in my office and on the computer for a while.
Can I say something real quick? about
Yes.
that? Just in terms of the public, I think that to do public service announcements on the education of why this groundwater thing is gonna go on, is gonna go a long way. Because everybody's gonna say, we bought this new water plant, okay, now we're gonna get a month of groundwater, are you kidding me? So unless they understand it well in advance,
Right.
it's gonna be a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I agree with you, Ted. I mean, it's just a matter of, yes, we have the new plant, now we gotta clean out the system.
Exactly.
And, you know, the system has never been cleaned in this way before. So it's going to be a very painful transition. I will not sugarcoat that in any way. But once the transition is complete, we'll be a lot better off.
And Ted, on top of that, I fully understand what you're talking about, but I can also say that this is the first year that the pool was filled to where they did not have to add a bunch of chemicals to it. Yeah, I mean, it looked as clear as it does now. They didn't have no groundwater. We was all very shocked. And Sam was up there and she goes, I can't believe this. I mean, normally they have groundwater and they have to put in all the chemicals. This she was able to just start her whole process. So we know the plant's producing good water. We just gotta get all the muck and all that. And it's gonna have to be a well thought out plan. And Ohio Rural Water is where I was going with this. Ohio Rural Water is gonna work with us and the EPA to try to educate the public on what to expect and the reason why we're doing it. And they are also the ones, Ohio Rural Water is also the one that, come up with the hydro flushing, the unidirectional plan. He looked at our maps, figured out the gallons of water. This one won't be, we're just gonna flush it until it's clean. With the machine that we got will actually, it'll tell us that we need to run 150,000 gallons out this valve and then shut it off, because once you run that much to it, you're not gonna clean it no more. So then you have to go to another direction. So he's got all the math and all the formula, so we know exactly how much has gotta flow through each pipe and through each hydrant. So the 2-inch or less water lines are sporadic through the town. I threw a budget number on each one of them based on cemetery replacement. And Mike Heinz is giving me a ballpark number of what it costs per foot. That's where the numbers to the right come from. And these are measurements off of Google Earth that I did on those. I would tell you that we found a couple more since we've been here. One is at Davis, between Davis, I gotta find it now.
In Stafford?
Stafford and Xenia.
Stafford Xenia.
Yes, that is not a 2-inch. That is actually a 1-inch, is not.
What it is, yeah.
A 1-inch from Phillips Street to Stafford on Davis is a 1-inch. It feeds 4 houses.
Mhm.
4 houses. So to fill their bathtub, it takes quite a while. So we need to proactively get started on those, but these are all ones that require engineering because they require a EPA permit to be able to change them as well.
And when you look at those on your spreadsheet, I did not list them individually. I took all of those numbers and added them up. So there, it's just where it says names too small. That is the number for all of those added up. Now, they won't be all in 1 year, obviously, but,
But at the same time, Brian, if you go back to that dig once thing, I mean, if we're talking about replacing these 2 inches, we also gotta talk about storm, we also gotta talk about sewer, so that, these costs are just for water, these ain't for the repairs of the improvements for the other areas. Cemetery, we ran that, it was a 6-inch that went down cemetery, and they just kept the old sewer. With the policy now of trying to, and maybe we can inspect it, and maybe it doesn't need to be done, but as old as these lines are, my thought is it's gonna be a clay 3-foot sections like Tanner was talking about earlier. So the added cost could be per street.
Would you use the camera in the sanitary and
And the
storm sewer
sanitary and the storm,
beforehand?
correct, we could, and evaluate it, and it could be a situation where, those may be able to take a relining, and the cost of the new is astronomically higher than, using relining and fixing it that way.
Are you looking at, trying to eliminate some of the dead ends and creating loops?
Creating loops, correct, and that's why we want an engineer involved with that, Ted, to be able to eliminate some of them, because for instance, the one at, on Davis between Phillips and, Stafford, those 4 houses is a dead end off of that line. So your last house is using water or it gets stagnated.
Well, I think the good news there is, didn't you guys just put a new storm in there a couple of years ago?
Right there, that
Storm
intersection.
on Davis?
Oh, yeah,
Those
yeah,
two
yes, yes,
sections.
yes. It parallels both sides of the road in front of your house and across the street.
So we know the storm's in there.
So, on the next map, it shows a little bit of what the guys are doing now. They're going out, they're marking these, water valves, they're actually, we've got to jackhammer some of them up because they're under blacktop. When they did Lisa, Miami, Southgate and all that over there, when they re-blacktopped that, we actually found 17 valves that we had no clue was there because they've been blacktopped over. So,
These are the valves you're talking
these are
about?
the valves that we gotta turn off the water mains on. So that's what the guys are doing now, they're going out with our map, they're trying to find them, and if not, they're wanting to find a metal detector underneath, and then we gotta go and try to jackhammer them up and try to find the location of them, so it's been an ongoing process. I thought we'd already started, but we've had so much thrown at us with different projects, we're running a little behind on the unidirectional flushing. The hydrants, if you go back one bit, the hydrants, we have to find all the hydrants as well, because as you can see, some of the, bushes are covering them. So being able to identify where those are, and then the maintenance to them after we're done with the program, we like to GIS, locate every one of them, and then, get them sandblasted and painted so they last longer.
How are we, doing the GIS location?
Right now, we're working, we've got some proposal from,
LJP.
LJP.
So has the collector app come up yet?
Yes.
Okay, because
Yes.
that is a great way to
Yeah.
drop pins where all this
Yes.
stuff is.
And we're working with them, plus we have a handheld system.
Okay.
Denise and I just had a final meeting with them on Friday, and they actually brought in a sample from some of the data that I told them that they had,
Right.
and their system's phenomenal, and I think they're gonna be a good system and a good fit, and they're willing to work with us and all that, so.
Okay. Well, I definitely want to make sure when we get all the lines in, that we can use something like the collector app, so you can just take your phone and drop
Yes.
pins when you're out. Okay.
Right, and then come into the office and we can make changes with it and this and that.
Okay.
So, yes,
John, are you taking advantage of all the work that
we are, but we can't take advantage to it. Yep, they've located the sewer, the storm, the public works guys have located all the water. Problem is we can only videotape it right now, because we don't have that GIS system up and running. But we are taking some good notes, and actually Vectren is giving us thumb drives of the whole complete inside of all the pipes.
They're doing depths and.
They're doing depths and all that.
They found a curb stop for a next door neighbor where the gas shut off, which was in my yard about 8 feet from the street, about 3 inches underneath
Yeah.
the grass. It's kind of zigzag, you know.
They have located more utilities over there than, and we don't wanna lose that data.
Yeah,
So
I'm watching them.
we've taken a lot of
They're doing
video
a
of
good
it.
job.
Yes.
We've got a lot of information, it's real useful. And you know, all the infrastructure that we talked about, we have in place. You know, they've accessed sewer lines.
Yes.
And water and, you know, so much stuff runs in the same trench, especially when you talk about the service to the home, you know.
Right.
They're using them too. They've already got the main gas line on the street.
Correct. The, electric is the next. Ben and I have been actively, trying to get a price from Dayton Power and Light for a bypass switch. I've actually reached out to another guy, he's supposed to be back on the case. We really need a bypass switch for 2 reasons. One, to be able to work on it safely. But if we have a regulator go out or something catastrophic inside there, we need to be able to flip that switch to where we can still work safely or get power back on to where we can assess it. Right now, we have an infrared gun, and I know that Ben went out there and actually shot it, and we have multiple hot spots in the area, and if you go to the next map, Ben, first, to the right is a hot spot, and what that is, it's a loose connection or a part that's failed. And majority of our hot spots out there, correct me if I'm wrong, is they use regular galvanized bolts. And so, and they should be stainless with copper nuts and all that. We have some on the cutouts or something that are bad, but majority of them are just bolts that are loose or corroded that need to be changed out before they create us a bigger problem than what we want. The area underneath the structure, and that is, go back to that one. Inside the fence is gravel, and it's got a wire mesh underneath of it down a couple inches for grounding purposes. But the vegetation is killing us in there, and trying to run a mower in there or a weed eater, if you throw a rock and it hits one of the ceramics, you're in a fireball. So we do that at very minimal. I mean, the grass is pretty tall. Spraying in there, we did that for a couple of years, but then we was asked not to do it. We've had the suggestion of bringing goats and putting them in there, but goats climb, and so they would not be lasting very long in there. So over time, we've tried the vinegar, vinegar was like a steroid out there. I mean, seriously, we was putting vinegar out there, and we come back like, we tried burnout, vinegar just made it grow 10 times faster. And so eventually, after all the work is done in there, we would like to propose if the bypass switch is in, being able to get in there and put blacktop down and being able to divert the water out to the ditch pond. Maintenance is the big issue that we need the bypass switch for, before we have problems. Now, they've done this in the past, and Ben and myself being linemen, we don't like it. We want a mechanical bypass, but if I called Dayton Power and Light right now and told them we had a major outage, they'd actually send linemen in here and they'd bypass it with jumpers out of the road. But that's a big safety issue because you're picking up a lot of people with mechanical jumpers to where if you had a regular switch, if you ground mount switch, you're standing on a grounded pad, you can flip it. You can pick up the whole village like that versus trying to mechanically do it with linemen in the air. It's a safety issue. Not saying that they won't do it, but we would like to be prepared just in case something happens.
So, do you think that, I mean, because I know that you've been working with DPNL on this for a while. So is one of the holdups the fact that it's economically more feasible for them to do the bypass periodically than put this switch in?
Well, no, because we'll be paying the cost. I just think it's been dropped. One engineer didn't want to do it, so he passed it to another engineer, they kind of dropped it. I actually got AMP involved, and it even fell through AMP's hands, so now I've got another guy with Dayton Power and Light that is up the food chain quite a bit, and he's taking control of it, so hopefully we'll get somewhere. It's somebody that Ben and I have worked with quite a bit at another company, so. Electric study for the village with all the growth that we've got going on and the status of the infrastructure, I think an electric study would be appropriate to do and have them go through the village and tell us where we need to either put in a third circuit or you need to increase the conductor size on this line, how they put in the third circuit. It's all about voltage drop, and Brad has to be the furthest customer on that one line. You know, we're adding housing, we're adding subdivision, we're adding the fire department, Brad increased his load. We got CDE that's increased. And we're not at max capacity on the lines right now, but we need to be able to split that load up better. And by having a study, they'd be able to say, okay, we can split it up by putting the circuit here and easing the other loads on the other two sides, on the east and the west, and maybe have a center circuit. DPL wouldn't necessarily increase it to us, but we'd be able to split ours instead of two sections, we'd be able to split it into three sections and maybe minimize the number of people that's out if we have an outage. And be able to split out the load to where Brad may not feel the voltage drop effect.
What do you mean DPL?
They would not increase, they're bringing us enough power, we just have to split it better. They're actually bringing theirs to us on one system. Now, they've got that one system coming in two ways, but they're
So we
bringing
have
theirs.
enough power coming in for the increases we're
Correct.
anticipating, but it's not being utilized or
It's not being
utilized
shipped
well.
out, distributed.
Can we have a ballpark on a study based on what we paid for other studies? For in other utility sector, just I mean, my concern is that there's a couple of really big potential expenses in 2019, it's TBD. And those are the numbers we need to look at the electric accounts and figure out where we are. If there was anything on this whole spreadsheet that I wanted to see, it was row 44 and 45, and they're both TBD. Meeting current and future needs. Engineering study and Third Circuit.
I could call an engineering company and see if they can give me a budget number, but with the amount of work that they do and the price that they charge, I couldn't ballpark it.
Compared to other major studies we've done, and
Yeah, for instance, the stormwater study is gonna cost us a lot less than this electric study.
But we don't even know what that's gonna cost, because the last one was done in 1991.
can we have a priority on that? Getting a price on, a ballpark on that? And I thought that there was an estimate for that Third Circuit that you had mentioned in the past.
We did,
700.
700 to $1 million, and that was a
All right.
ballpark figure.
I mean, I would rather have a ballpark figure, you know, and kind of high-low. If it's gonna be
I
$1
would
million,
think if you
we
wanted,
need to know
a
that.
high-low on the study or on the Third Circuit.
Both. I wanna know an estimate on
The
those. Those are
Third
really
Circuit
important.
would be, is what we've been put in as a place marker, would be 700,000.
When we're doing
Thank
something
you.
like that, which is basically the Third Circuit, it's to service future growth.
Correct.
I mean, I'm wondering, how are we financing that? Because should the current population pay for that when it's really to service future growth? Or is there a way to pay for it over time that you actually have the future growth?
I don't
finance it? I don't know if this is a conversation
right,
now,
I mean,
but that's, you know, that's one thing when we're thinking about these things, when it's really to service future growth, it should not be a burden on our current population. I think this is something I would think.
We need a number first.
Well, the first thing to do, Lisa, is probably let the RFP for the electrical study, which will give you at least a cost for that study. And then, you know, whether we actually let the contract or not, the RFP will put you in the ballpark.
So is it really feasible to put in a Third Circuit in 2019? Given everything else? I mean, I said that earlier too, about 2019. Is that really gonna
Is
happen?
it feasible?
From a capacity perspective, it's
I think we may have some other more needs.
I mean, the new houses won't be in yet.
No,
I mean, I'm just trying to
correct.
think about when will we really need that money?
But are there some capacity issues currently where the Third Circuit
The
can
building
offset?
out of CBE would be affected because that circuit right now is gonna be by adding Cresco on that circuit and the expansion of, maybe Dave Melling system, the fire
We run
department.
about 150 on that circuit right now.
Yeah, and we're gonna add,
About 120 at max if they use the full capacity out of that at Cresco. So 120 plus the 150.
and that's a 400 amp circuit. And to get back to your question, Dayton Power and Light brings us larger voltage on a larger wire. And the majority of the village, 70% of the village, 60% of the village is on number 6 wire.
Yeah.
Which is about the size of a pencil. Where Dayton Power and Light's bring it in the size of a half dollar. So the bigger the wire, the more capacity you can hold, and that, it's the whole voltage drop. To go back to your question, I mean, we paid $50,000 for the broadband study. You know, so, and that was just a study about putting in broadband, so I think you're talking about an electric study, you may be in their neighborhoods of $150,000 to $200,000 to do a study.
It'd be really good to know just some kind of a number for future planning.
I mean, if council would like us to let an RFP for electric and or stormwater, we can certainly start working on that and bring it before council, if that's the direction that we want to go.
I would like it. Brian, what do you think?
Definitely we need stormwater.
Is it ethical to do an RFP for something when you're not sure you're gonna do it? I mean, it's not, there's no
If it's
problem.
not, it does happen occasionally that the village or the city needs to know
For planning.
what it's going to cost them, and if they can move forward immediately, they will move forward, and if not, they not. And you just put in the RFP that we are, you know, this project will move forward if funding is available to do so.
But it does seem, usually when you put out an RFP, you do have some ballpark idea of what that's gonna cost. I don't see people usually putting out RFPs when they're thinking from 50 to 200,000. I mean, there should be a ballpark, a way to get a ballpark number
We can,
without an RFP.
We
we
could,
can contact John Courtney.
yeah, we can contact John Courtney and ask him what he thinks. We can contact AMP and ask
I already,
them. Well, not for them to do it, but,
AMP sent me some suggested people to call,
well, we can do
and
that.
so we can call them and see if they can give us a ballpark figure. And then we can.
I mean, it might be to their advantage, for just the reason that we're discussing right now, that we
Correct.
don't know what, we wanna be fair to them, and we wanna know how much we're gonna need.
And we, on the study, we're not asking for the engineering, so the study may be cheaper. We're just asking them for their advice on our complete electric system.
Mhm.
And then if they say, oh yeah, well, you need a third circuit, and then it would go into the engineering phase. But just to study and say, this is where you need to attack, this is where you're gonna have problems. Because ultimately, if we don't find these problems out, then it's gonna affect Brad's plan. Because he's the furthest one out there. Because he's also got, you know, all that small wire between. So,
So are we talking about electric and stormwater, getting a ballpark?
Well, I guess ultimately, if we are agreeing that these are things we have to do, then we need to know how to do them.
And how much
So-
it's,
So I think by the 20th, we should at least try to have some ballpark figures on what those studies look like. Because we need to, I think, probably get these going sooner rather than later, or we're gonna be way past when we need it.
Well, and especially if you're talking about being at near capacity for the CDE, and we, you know, we're hoping to get that off the ground with more buildings than just Cresco. That scares me.
well, we've got 150 and 170, so you're at 270 right now on a 400 amp fuse, correct? 320, you're at 320 on a 400 amp fuse on the, so, and is not the fire department on that?
Yeah, it will.
And the fire department will be going on that as well,
The
and
new
they're gonna
one?
increase.
So when the high school on that?
The high
I mean, because
school
they're
on that.
talking about, you know, we don't know what their plans are gonna be potentially
and
for.
when is the fire station gonna be up and built?
I don't know if this.
So
They're
we-
going back out.
They're going back out.
So it's
in
gonna,
October.
it's gonna be a bit,
Yes,
not 2019.
Oh, no, they start construction, yeah.
Yeah.
Ideally, they would accept the bid in October and they would start construction right away. And I think that would be their.
I'm just trying to figure out when they would actually be meeting them.
If they accept the bid, they should be done by sometime in late 2019.
In 2019.
I would think.
Thank you.
I can't see it going any longer than that.
In the high school.
The 180 poles, we did release 90 of them on an RFP. We had 3 people come to the bid, and all 3 of them declined the bid. Because of the price of the added cost of the prevailing wage to their lineman pay, their 401Ks. They said they would not bid on 90 poles. The cost was just gonna be way out of the ballpark. These are reputable companies. 2 of them has worked in town, and every one of them said if you lower that down, we'd be willing to come in and change them out, but it's
Lower
not,
the number,
lower the number down.
which is why we raised it, because of the.
Correct, we thought we'd get a better deal, but then when they threw in that prevailing wage and they threw in all their benefits and this and that, all 3 of them declined.
So how many do we have to go down to, did they say?
About
Back.
10,
About 10.
Was that the original?
that was the original.
11, was it?
Well, we got extra.
Okay.
Yeah. We actually had 11 changed out for 49,000. They threw in an extra on key salary, correct? That's what they did, and that's the reason why we got 11. And then one guy, one company called me back and said, hey, we're interested if you wanna change 1 or 2 out, but that's about all we can handle, so. So we're back to square one on those, and Patty and I are trying to come up with a different plan on how to approach that situation. And the guy that actually was bidding for, one of the companies is an government employee, and he's like, hey, no way, so we gotta come up with a different way to get them poles changed out.
Can you go back to them and offer them a design build? Compete, you submit the best proposal to do whatever, we call it design build.
Correct, I know.
You know, and then put them against each other, and the best man wins, and that's what you allocate.
But that doesn't have anything to do with the prevailing wage piece. I
Right,
mean, that's,
what's
they
the other
don't,
Sure it does, on their manpower. If they're coming back with a proposal for what they can handle, for the best price, and then even though they're different, you can choose whichever one fits your need the best, still based on price and quantity of what they can do.
But if it goes over $50,000, they have to pay the prevailing wage. So,
Well, they may come back with a 49.9.
which is, yeah, that's
I
10
mean, that's
balls.
better, so be it.
But getting that study for the electric system, so without the engineering, it's still, you're thinking could be up to 150. I mean, I know you're just sort of guessing the
Yeah.
cost.
I think so.
We'll make some,
That's
we'll make some
for
calls.
consulting.
What are you saying, Karen?
it seems like a lot.
Yeah.
Just that level.
Yeah, but you gotta realize though, we paid $50,000 for broadband, and all they was doing was looking at the backbone and the trees. This engineering or this study would have to take in consideration how many poles we have, how many transformers, how many houses are fed off in transformer, what the load capacity of each one of them transformers are. You're talking 1,900 poles on top of what our solar field's producing, what Antiox is producing. There's a lot of information that they've got to gather to be able to see where our problem
Plus
is.
the age of the conductor.
Right, the number 6 is almost obsolete.
And we don't have any of that information already kind of put together that we would hand them.
We got pole locations, we don't have the year, we don't have a good transformer. We got a pretty decent, but there's been so many changes, that was done
Our latest is,
98?
yeah, 98, that was 01.
1998. And it wasn't kept up to date. And shy of staff walking around and looking at every pole and trying to, that's where the study kind of helps us with being able to continue on where we do that. And I'm hoping that I am shooting high. I mean, but
The other part of doing that though is you have to, that's a method by which you can in fact create a database. That doesn't exist. So it's a hit and miss, and you proactive in any solutions to increase capacities or change out line sets or do whatever, because you just don't know, it's hit and miss.
Correct.
So, you know, to me, the study is, you know, my gosh, talk about a priority.
Yeah,
To
maybe
continue
we
to
should
find the
earmark
problem.
some of these things, cause I think there's gonna be,
I'm taking a
our
note.
time is gonna,
Yeah.
it's getting
Um,
late.
The next one down on my list is cutouts, and I'll show you a picture of that in a few minutes. Continue to do the infrared, that is, staff, and I just put it in there for a place mark to be able to continue. Reclosures, testing and replacement. We wanna try to do one a year. We have, actually, we have 21 of them. And what we like to do is replace them with a single, it's called a triple single. So we like to replace one a year. What that would do is it would free up 3 of them. We could actually get them rebuilt and we could move them to problem branch areas like at Northwood. That it's always got squirrels calling in and tripping out, and then we have to bring somebody in, whereas if we put one of the old reclosures after it's been redone on that, it would go ahead and dissolve the squirrel, and then it would re-kick back in. So, versus having one of the linemen come in and fix it, it would hit 3 times and it would stay energized.
And your 150,000 is for the 21 total?
It is for the 21 total, it's not per piece, but we'd like to replace 1 per year. 1 would gain us 3 to be able to put on problem areas, on single lines. We're replacing the ones that are on 3-phase to where they're triple singles. The other thing it does is on the new ones, Kevin, this is where the broadband comes in, is the new ones that would make us capable in the future to be able to hook up to SCADA, where we can monitor that on computers and on phones to be able to know where the problems are.
Yeah, we'll also have you go back and talk about the larger poles.
The larger poles, we have started that since Ben and I was here in 14. We actually increased the size of the poles for more space, for higher height with the primary, to create more wood in the middle to be able to do more broadband or whatever we do in the future. And we went from like a class 5 pole to a class 3 pole as our standard pole now, which is, it's a beefier pole to be able to handle more load.
And you do have at your places tonight 2 documents from SpringsNet. I did send you these this afternoon, and I apologize that you did not get them as part of the packet. But you do have their glossary of terms, as well as another document from them that has to do with the broadband project.
I just wanna I'm trying to still put dollars in boxes. Did you say the cutouts are 10K per year, each year for those years?
I think we can do it, Ben, if 10K, would that be for every other year or?
I think every other.
Every
Yeah.
other year.
Thank you.
This is one of the poles that was being changed out, on this last set. Put it in there for, that's actually in an alley. And you can't really tell it, but there's an alley driving right underneath that pole. And I put it there for 2 reasons. One is you can see some of the line clearance that we've done in the past. Everything's free and above where the neutral is, but to get to that pole, you have to cut your way into it. So we need to aggressively do some tree trimming in the alleys. We need to either hire it out and back charge the homeowners by taxes or something, or we need to take it on as a village and take the alleys back and try to keep them clear. But, this makes our job more difficult in the daytime, but can you imagine if you have a problem at nighttime on that pole, you can't even see unless you get in the bucket truck to be able to see if there's something wrong on that pole. And then our smaller bucket that we used to have, because of alleys like this, if you scar that boom or gouge that bucket, you're $7,000 repairing a gouge because it won't pass dielectric testing.
Johnny, I'm sure you do this, but you consider underground where possible?
We do, when all the new stuff goes in, it is underground. These are just a couple more places, for the alley clearing. Actually, they're replacing a pole, the 2 poles on the right side, they're replacing 2 poles. And it's hard enough to get my Durango through there, but you're talking they gotta get bucket trucks and line trucks in that back alley right there. And then the other pole is one of the other ones being replaced at the same time. Next one, guys.
That is, oh.
The red tag on this pole, was checked in 2014 when we had that, no, 2015.
15, yep.
When we had that study done, that's an instant reject pole. That's one of 180 that we have left. Then actually seeing that weeping over on a Friday, he wrote oops on it to replace it on Tuesday. It fell on Saturday. It fell on the house. So we have a little bit of work to do on the house. I got a contractor looking at it, giving me a price. And, the other company that was in here, instead of then having to call in all the guys, they went over and they took care of it with the other contractors did while they was in town. But when we have them inspected and they tell us that we need to get them fixed, we need to be able to jump on it. But we're trying to do the best we can.
front yard recently.
Yep.
Part of that?
Huh?
Is that part of that?
No, that was all of it.
I don't know. I'm telling you that the pole was
Run.
needing replaced because it was rotten.
The next one is a picture of the cutouts. Lisa, you was just asking about that. This was actually done, this cutout cross arm was changed. This was at Speedway when we did the power outage on, Keys Alley. The village crew actually went up and fixed this one. They had seen this about a month prior to, and noticed that the pole was smoking a little bit at the top when it was raining a little bit. And it's because these
Never a
old
good sign.
ceramics, this, old ceramic and porcelain cutouts are failing right and left. And if that little crack allows electricity to flow back to that metal bracket back here and burn the cross arm up. So the new ones are all poly material. And Dayton Power and Light actually did a 100% replacement. That's what they've been doing for a while. They're not even allowed to throw those in unless they go up and physically monitor what. I actually was watching Ben do it, and when he actually pulled it open, he was real careful because if it breaks, then you have live primary right there in your hands. So, these are a safety issue that we gotta try to get out of the village. Pole lights, changing the street lights out, 2011, the village changed them all out to, induction lighting with a 5-year warranty. And after 5 years, we've been replacing them like crazy. I've got some samples, one's out of the farm, they're supposed to be bringing me another one for LEDs. LEDs are dropping in price like daily. The energy board wants to be part of this, and I'm supposed to bring them a couple samples and let them look at them. But I'm thinking realistically, we could start changing them out as they go bad, but maybe 2021, 22, after we get some more important things done, to be able to change out large quantity at one time. And we would do this in-house versus hiring it out.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a suggestion, because you know, I think, once we go past 3.5 hours, we're gonna start to lose focus. So, and not that I don't think these are as important, but I guess I wanna see what priority questions council has about any of the remaining topics. And then, I think that'll still leave you guys some time if you wanna highlight anything in this section. And then there are a few things I know I wanna mention. So, so council, as you look at some of these, are there any particular ones that you wanna ask questions about?
I think in the downtown section, it was, I believe that's where there was talk about another restroom and maybe changing Short Street traffic patterns. That just seemed like some heavy lifting.
Those are fairly easy.
Well, it's easy to do.
Downtown's been talked about a lot, and I'll be honest with you, I just got into the I've been a part of them, but I actually just got into the conversation because of the new position that Short Street's been talked about since 14, since I've been here, about closing it down and putting bollards in there and making like an area where you can have different things, bike parking, and right behind the Board of Education building, we own that building, and that would be the best place to put another set of restrooms on the south end of town, to where people don't have to try to run all the way down to the train station or the Bryant Center. They're at that end of town, and they'd be able to use the restroom at the south end and continue shopping and doing other things. It's been talked about since 14, there's been a lot of discussion about it. I don't know that anybody's put price tags to it.
Right, well, I will say, you know, in the active transportation plan, that was contemplated, including, thinking about one-way, by Mills Lawn, to add safety in terms of, you know, drop-off, pick-up. So we will have some visuals on that, because that's one of the 3 projects that they prioritized to kind of look at, you know, diagrammatically what that could be.
Well, I'm not advocating another study, but, for sure. I'm just wondering about traffic patterns, and I know it takes folks a while to get used to, you know, switching what we're used to doing.
Well, in this case, I think the study was done.
Okay.
So we will get that as part of the active transportation plan that we'll
Okay.
see soon.
Right.
It was done with a grant.
Right, right, yep.
Okay, okay. I'd definitely be interested in seeing it. Cool.
Are there any safety things in the buildings and grounds that rise to the top?
Pottery shop, wall.
Pottery shop is the big one. If you wanna talk about safety aspect, pottery shop is the #1 priority on the back wall. Can you go to you can just go through those.
Thank you for the new crew quarters, by the way. Those are the new crew quarters.
Yeah, looks good.
Wow, feel a different arms, huh?
So,
It's way back here, Ben.
keep going. The program is a little bit slow when you're trying to advance.
The back, I'll just talk while he's getting there. The back wall to the pottery shop, northeast, let me think about this, northeast corner of it, is something wrong with the footer, and the whole end wall's coming out.
Slide 95.
Past, the way that they handled it was the spray foam. But that's not the correct fit. And, in order to save,
You're almost there.
well, they can't even give me an estimate, they want me to have staff dig so they can see the footer, so they can figure out the attack, cause what happened is they gotta fix the footer, they gotta disassemble one wall, put it back up, disassemble the other wall, and put it back up. But it has gradually got worse in the last couple of years, and spray foam's not holding it together no more.
You're almost
So,
there. Just keep going.
that is the major, that's the #1
There
safety
you go.
right there. The crack at the top of the window, that block is actually out about 1.5 inches at both of the windows. It's falling this way, and the other side is this side, and it's falling the other way. And the mason said that as long as he can see what the footer's doing, he can tell us how to fix it, and, or he can give me a price to fix it, and then we'll have to put braces on the wall while he takes the block out, puts the new block up, And then once all the new block is up, then we need to actually block seal that. It's never been painted, it's exposed block. And it's gonna weep water into it, and that's what you're getting is the water's got in there and expanded and shifted and moved it. So again, Lisa, I cannot give you a number because the contractor won't give us a number because he's gotta see what's wrong with the footer before he can give us a price on how to fix it.
How's the roof?
What's that? Yes.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
How's the roof?
The roof, I believe, was in 2000s.
I thought it was,
It may be older than that. It has
no, I
a,
thought it was newer than that.
no, I don't think so. Now, it does have a couple holes in it that's gotta be addressed, but for the most part, it's still a good roof. It's a rubber roof. It had I think it was a 30-year warranty, if I'm not mistaken. It's right at the end of its life. But again, I think the block wall is the most crucial. The roof, I think we can do with operating funds to be able to put it in the budget once the wall is repaired. And then we get the outside sealed up.
So are you planning on working on that wall?
We are, as soon as the grass mowing slows down and a couple of the other fires are put out. I wanna talk to the block mason and have him brace it to where if we actually dig beside that footer, that we don't move it and the whole wall comes down on its side.
So we have a nonprofit that's housed in the pottery shop right now. And there's a lot of other nonprofits in the village that don't have the same benefit as the pottery shop, who's there for basically no rent. So I wonder if this is another opportunity for some grant money to support that nonprofit that's staying there, or some other kind of fundraising, to take on something like this as a collective, rather than having it paid for fully by the village, given that there's a nonprofit that uses that space.
So, and certainly we don't want to lose the building, but, I definitely want to underscore Lisa's point that we need some collaboration and, sort of joint effort on, keeping this a good facility for John Bryan Community Pottery, so.
I mean, I think it's the point that Judith is always very good at keeping front and center about spreading costs, to people who can't afford it, in essence, by using the taxpayers' dollars to pay for this. I mean, it's relatively small in light of some of the other things we've talked about. It doesn't seem to be equitable.
And they have in the past offered to, pay part of some of the other things, of course, on a much smaller scale. But
Yeah.
we can certainly talk to them about, doing some kind of fundraising like they did for the kiln that they just bought and that kind of thing, to see if we can collaborate on that in that way.
I think we should.
All right, does active transportation talk about electric vehicles at all?
You mean like automated, or?
Well, I just, I just saw the Tesla Chargers.
Right.
Is on the Bryan Center list, and I just wondered if they talked about.
It wasn't really contemplated in that work, beyond just kind of thinking about the application for Fleet Streets to make sure, that everybody's able to share the road.
Okay. I just wondered about the value or the appreciation for those chargers. I mean, people who drive Teslas want more chargers. I don't drive one, but I do know that Tesla will reimburse.
Well, yeah, we got
Yeah,
those
so
for
no.
free, and we got the,
We have not got the check. We have to show them that they're in and then we get the payment.
Okay.
there is another program coming out from AMP that we need to talk about tomorrow. To get some additional chargers for perhaps a different location, perhaps,
I was just gonna say that that's something to probably consider,
Yeah.
to add more in other locations, either on the street, at the municipal lot, and.
We got our
They
two,
use.
yeah, we got our two from Tesla, I'm not sure they'll give us more, I mean, we could ask them, maybe once we show them these two are in, but.
I think we have enough Teslas.
So, you know, you asked about priorities, and I just really wanna say thank you, because I know this has been a lot of work for everybody to pull this together. And then not only that, it's documented in a couple of different ways, so I think that amplifies it. I think it's helpful to have the photographs. The lens that I'm coming always to it is around budgeting, that's how I think about it. Both by year and by capacity and feasibility, not just feasibility of can we come up with the money, but can the work, you know, reasonably get done. And so when I look at what we haven't looked at, I just did a sort on the spreadsheet, you know, for anything that's both high priority and has a 2018, this year, August, 2018 or 2019, and there's a lot of things that are still TBD, that are right on top of us. So for me, those would be the highest priority, would be to get some numbers that we can live with for anything that's in 2018, 2019, to get some numbers, because there's quite a few we don't. The other thing is, when I search high to low, I notice some of the big numbers are multi-year. So, and maybe this is an easy answer, you know, but when you talk about smoothing, right, in terms of the cost, let's say it's $50,000 over 5 years. Is it $10,000 a year for 5 years, or is it $3,000 and then, yeah, is it then 20 and then 10 and then 8 and then 6? We have to know these things, because otherwise we don't really know if we have enough money to do these things that we all want to do. And we also don't know if we can make any changes that would help affordability for the community, for example, around electric rates. So to me, those are the priorities. Anything that's gonna happen in the next 18 months, we don't know how much it's gonna cost. Generally, that's a problem. And then multi-year breaking.
I want to ask you, you know, I've raised this question, is that, you know, some big items are really for future development. And, you know, I raised that question, I don't know much about it, but just in thinking about in terms of fairness, in terms of how you finance those kind of things. If it's for future development, and of course the future development is supposed to help increase our tax base, is there a way to finance it so that the burden isn't on our current citizens, or, you know, making it less possible to think about some ways around affordability, to make some decisions around affordability, because the current population is gonna be paying for these things that actually are gonna be a benefit to this, you know, these additional businesses and, citizens that are going to be moving to the village. So I don't know.
So this is a good question. I mean, for me, I immediately come to mind some of the moving parts that we already have put in action. We're looking at investment in order to bring in more money. We're looking at the possibility for grants. We're trying to take action to increase our tax base. We know our tax base is gonna go up some with Cresco, unless something crazy happens. What else can we bring in there? So there'll be costs, but it'll also increase the tax base. So I think these are all important plays, the DCIC, things that we're trying to put into place that reduce the burden on ideally on the individual community member who may be really facing affordability problems. But these are some kind of big plays. And that's why I'm trying to figure out what's our cost in 2019, 2020, 21, 22. When are the houses gonna be built? Then I would think Mary Ann will wanna know the mix. You know, I mean, all of these costs informal, so
Well,
the housing
actually,
mix and all these things.
What I don't know if we'll end at 8:30 or not, but we don't often have this amount of staff here, and other people. So I'd like to be able to take advantage of the fact that we're all sitting at this table. Well, first of all, to thank staff for doing all this. great, and I know from hearing from you that this has been a lot of work, and maybe, it's probably not the first time it's been done, but I know that there have been a lot of times that studies have been done, and that stormwater thing is one that probably nothing was done.
Well, I will tell you that nothing aggravates the staff work
But-
and studying and not.
So I am thinking that this is an energized staff, and we have an energized council, and we wanna do things that clearly we have the money. But, so since we're all sitting here, is there anything else that staff wants us to know, or things we should be, council should be thinking about?
I want to say about my staff, and this includes all of the people sitting in this room, but in addition, all the rest of my staff, that we are working very cohesively as a team now, and we are accomplishing a lot. So and I think Lisa, it was you that said, there's a lot here that staff says they're gonna do in 2018 and 2019. We understand that, and I think that everybody in this room has made that commitment, because we all know, especially after doing this, just what shape that infrastructure is in and what needs to happen and what needs to happen quickly. And so do we all know, and especially these guys and the rest of the crews that work with them, that they're gonna be working their tails off? Yeah, they know that, and they're ready to do it. So I'm just really proud of all of my staff. I mean, Denise puts in a lot of time working with Johnny on all of this stuff. It's just, I know it sounds like a lot, but I guarantee you that at least 80% of what they said they're gonna get done in the next year and a half is gonna get done. At least. I don't know.
I'll let you, I'll wrap it up after everybody else.
Okay. Tanner?
Tanner.
Tanner's like, what?
You guys wanna say?
I just can't reiterate, I appreciate that you guys have approved a lot of things that have been necessary for us to do our jobs. That pool was huge. It's burned me up for a lot of years, how it was treated or mistreated or not treated at all. I think it's an excellent resource, and it took a lot of commitment from the community to make it all possible. I really appreciate that. Furthermore, I'd like to say that I appreciate that you guys entrusted us with having a new crew room, because all those pictures look great and everything, but if you had to smell the old crew room, you would understand how imperative it was for us to convert from an old milking room to a new facility that we love and we appreciate, and we're going to maintain, and we're going to have it for a long time. So as far as that goes, I think that we have a new culture here, and I think that I hope this was a little bit eye-opening for everybody. I hope you weren't shocked by the state of our infrastructure. But to be fair, it's much worse than some of these pictures have dictated to you. And we need a camera truck. Badly.
Right, well, and again, remember, it's not only Yellow Springs, right? It's
Right.
the entire United States.
It's true, but I can tell you this. The community is an extremely old one. And it goes back a long way. And what we have going on in a lot of sections of town are former government surplus. So there's not a whole lot of continuity in the older parts of town. And we really don't know if we're sitting on a ticking time bomb or we're sitting in great shape. And you can bury a lot of sins underground. And we need to know, we need to work on facts instead of speculation, to answer Lisa's to be determined. Well, we're sitting on a bunch of to be determined, and we don't know until something bubbles up.
Not literally.
Literally.
Yes, and it goes bad.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you all listening
You're
to
gonna
us.
talk, right? Okay. I was like, do we have
I
breaks
just,
for that
I just
camera?
wanna say thank you for everything that you guys give us, and especially with the bucket truck coming through that fast, when it was a safety issue, just being able to push that through and get that truck to us, and just, it makes our job so much easier and safer. So I just wanna say thank you for that in the crew room. It's awesome. Love it.
Brad?
Again, thank you all for your time, listen to us tonight. And from where I come from at the plants, everything's fairly new. I mean, so, you know, we're taking better care of it. But then out in the system, that affects us as well, you know, the sewers, and the water getting in. You know, we put a 2 million gallon storage for that rainwater, but we've overflowed that twice. So eventually, that Band-Aid's not gonna, we're gonna have to do something else. And I think we've got the crew to do it, and we're working as a whole, and it's going good.
Are you saying camera truck? Is that what you're implying?
Camera truck fixes everything.
Spencer, you have anything you wanna add?
Well, shout out to Spencer.
Over here at the station.
Got some upgrades
Good
done?
plug.
Yeah, we got some upgrades, we're able to live stream now. We have a couple smaller purchases, but nothing that's even remotely near what we're talking here, so.
Denise?
Couple things. One, I think that someone, myself, who's been around for a long time here in different capacities, and has seen a lot of the studies that have, literally, I've held them in my hands and put them on the shelves for historical reasons, just because they've gathered dust and nothing's happened. I think it will be really important in light of the fact that we do have this golden fill, and we have these properties that are gonna come up for development. I think one of the things Johnny didn't get a chance to talk about tonight that I want council to pay particular attention to is this GIS, because it will eliminate the need for future studies. The program that we saw the other day, and Johnny, you can elaborate, was phenomenal in that you can have drop downs, you can put in dates of when a pipe was installed, what size it is, information on maintenance. Johnny, you can pick up for me on that. I don't, there's other stuff on that, but.
An entire database of everything
Yes.
that,
Even down to what a sign costs. I mean, at the time that it was installed, the condition, if the lead mapping for the EPA last year, we actually did it, Brad and I did it. First ones in the area to get ours turned in, we used color pencil. And Denise helped us because we had to go through, and we actually used color pencils. I mean, with Denise's help, but we actually took it in there, we set it down with the EPA, and they're like, well, that works. Well, I mean, that's how bad it is. If we had the GIS system, it'd have been a couple clicks, and we could have printed a nice map out, we know when the homes were built, when the lines were installed, what shape our system's in. The EPA is coming out in October, correct? Infrastructure, for the study that we gotta get done, GISing would help us out tremendous, but you ain't gonna get it up and running that fast. So some more manual paperwork and maps and stuff like that. I'll just back up, with Patty, I agree that by far, since I've been at the village, we have the best crew, best public works that we've ever had, since I've been here and since 2014. The thing that Lisa and Kevin may not know is the amount of work that the public works has done since 2014, and that would be probably a list that I could get together and share with council, from electric, water, streets, street lighting, streetscape. I mean, I can go on. And the amount of work that was done, I just want to let council know, and the citizens, we're changing the stereotypical government worker. I come with that aspect from the contracting state that I was not going to be what everybody said that government workers are. And I can tell you right now, with the staff that we have, Yellow Springs will be put on the map for somebody to watch. Because if we had $200 million, we'd know where to spend it. We got all these new lines that we put in and stuff. We had a training exercise, and me and Brad and a former superintendent was in it. And we're like, what would we do if we had $200 million? Well, we put in new stuff. Well, we can't afford new stuff, but the number one thing that I took out of the meeting, and Brad probably did too, is the citizens still require the best service we can give them, whether we run it through an old pipe or a new pipe. And that's what we owe the citizens. And in order to complete some of your goals, we need to explain where we're at, so you can see where we need to start from, to where we can get you to where we can help you complete your goals. So-
Bad for the village.
What's that?
For the county
Well,
sometimes. The bigger the government, the worse it is, I'll tell you that. for a
I
fact.
can't complain about the village, I mean, I love working here, and the new crew quarters, the new barn, you guys have given us a bunch of things, and we don't take it for granted, we're changing it. If you was out on the farm 2 years ago, you probably wouldn't recognize it if you drove in the gates today. But at the same sense, we know where we're coming from, and I wanna leave it better for the next person than what I got. And by implementing some of these, like the GIS system, the new procedures and processes, the next person's gonna have it easy. You know, because we have enough work to keep us done for the career that we have. So I just wanna let you know, I think the biggest thing that I need to relay to you is the Bryant Center PC is one of the major components that it's majorly bad. We're in bypass mode on everything in the building, from the controls. If a part goes out of the controls, we could have a $25,000 emergency fund. None of the controls work. We have a unit down there in the police station that is basically on its last leg, it's bypassed as well. And if it goes out, it's $100,000. All right, I think $52,000, it was $100,000 if we had to replace both of them. Some of the things that can be fixed need to be done when the boiler systems are down. And the boiler systems are down now, but we didn't have the budget in it for this year. So we need to try to budget for it next year, because that's, for some reason, we use our heat to control our AC and our AC to control our heat. And our controls in the ceiling are all automatic, they're all mechanical. And with the new control system, they need to be all electronic. So now we have to change all those as well. So I really think for next year going forward, I gotta work with Colleen and with the council, and we need to spend money on aging infrastructure in the Bryant Center as well. Because I'm gonna tell you, I really think the infrastructure, or the Bryant Center is used more than any other community building around the surrounding area. I never go by this place that has not got something in it. I really think it's busier at nighttime than it is during the day, to be honest with you. I went by this place on, Saturday, me and my wife drove through town going to Indian Lake, and there was cars all the way up 68, the parking lot was full, and I'm like, man, where the heck? But
Nice.
we need to put money back into the Bryant Center as well, before we have emergencies.
And the energy and efficiency.
Yes.
I mean, I can't even imagine what
Yes.
the amount of power it's pulling.
So,
Correct.
Well, I would recommend that back in the day, I presented energy audits, building audits for the library and the Bryant Center. Council chose to do the library. It took the library 15 years to come around to getting that stuff, and the Bryant Center sat without it. So I can tell you that, you know, you need to do a building audit and get everything checked, from moisture to roof to energy efficiency to brick tuck pointing to windows, everything. And put it in a report. If you fix one thing, if you just fix the mechanical, it's gonna mess up a half a dozen other things. So it's not worth just piecemealing the emergencies. You know, look at it as a whole, plan on 15 years of getting it done and putting it in a budget, because it's a building.
so Colleen,
She
welcome to
resigns.
the village.
Thank you. So with all the work that Patty and Johnny and all of your crew put together, this will help me now start to really dig down into the budget. I'm getting really caught up with getting everything posted and getting some history. Infrastructures, the enterprise funds, we'll look at those first to see what's available. The general fund then for the rest of it, and then we'll start prioritizing. I'll come back to Patty, who will, get back with you on what we have available, what we feel we might be short, and if there's options that we need to talk about on how to get the money. This list is very big, but it's, again, the prioritizing that Johnny has done will at least let us start going, yes, we've got this one for next year. This one's definitely gonna be able to be in 19's budget and 20, and we can kind of start sorting it out and piecing it through.
Right, and,
So,
and everything in here, I mean, the spreadsheet is our best guesstimate. It's, you know, when we think these things would, in the best case scenario, be done by. We realize it's a fluid document. So things on there are gonna change given, budget considerations and all of that. But, I would like to ask if I wanna make one offer that Johnny has said he would do, and that is, if anybody wants to take a ride, if anybody wants to have a sit-down one-on-one or one-on-two, since we can have two council members, about any part of this, staff will accommodate that. If you have any questions on any particular topic. If you have anything, I take some notes as we go, Lisa updates on the spreadsheet, prices, all of that kind of thing, some of the suggestions that were made. If there's anything else that you would like to know, because none of this is really report back except for the ballparks on the RFPs for the electric and the storm by the 20th, and hopefully we will know a little bit about the grant by then for the water meters. So if there's anything else that you can think of that you would like to have more information on or something expanded, please let me know. You know, if it comes up later. You know.
I guess I would just ask, you know, because I was doing some playing around with the spreadsheet as well, and, you know, I've made different tabs for the high, medium, medium-high, low to medium. I guess I would ask you maybe to go back through the prioritization and sort of get some, because, you know, low to medium, medium, medium to high. You know, it's really hard to.
You should have seen it before I made it fix it.
Okay.
It was all red.
Yeah.
Maybe you can share what you've already done.
Yeah, I'll share that.
Well, on the right
Okay.
side, per each infrastructure, we have a number one and a number two. Did you see that as
I
well?
saw on the far right.
On the far right.
That's
Those
the-
are number one, number two, and I slid number three in there, I didn't catch it.
Priority
Those
for
are
those
priorities
funds.
for each fund.
Right, right.
And that, to be honest with you, that was probably the toughest thing on this spreadsheet,
Yeah.
because how do you rate one when you got 10 of them?
Like picking your favorite child.
Right, exactly. I don't have
It's
one.
easy.
Yeah.
You didn't want to do that either.
Right, right.
It's a big, big truck.
Well, I was just saying that for me, particularly the camera system and the GIS mapping, where you have the system, the cost for hosting, and it's not that much, I just feel like these should be priorities that we should move on quickly. And I don't understand why we might not, so I guess I would recommend that.
Right, and it sounds like, you know, I think one thing we put out there is some priorities for August 20th that, again, we won't have a lot of time to drill into them, but I want to at least kind of have sifted out some of the things that came up, and I know you've taken notes, I've taken notes. I, you know, again, want to reiterate, incredible work. I'm continually impressed, and this has been really helpful. So there are a couple things I want to highlight quickly. One of them, I want to underscore the funding thing again, because I think part of this reworking is to also map on this what the potential funding sources are. So again, I want to mention that we've got lodging tax that I think we should commit to this kind of improvement. Ultimately, we're going to have Cresco revenue sharing, so as we project out, we think about that. We've got our economic development fund that's been mentioned. We've got our investment gains, and then we've got grant potential. So I want to be thinking about all that beyond general fund, capital improvement things. The one thing that was missing that I want to make sure that we add in is, in the narrative, the reference to our economic sustainability goal. And in particular, I'm thinking about that property that's being poorly used as a parking lot next to Design Sleep. So I don't want to forget about that, potential for Beatty Hughes, we've talked about paid parking. So that is, you know, needs to be rolled into this thinking. We've highlighted dig once, and so obviously that needs to be, you know, forward in our minds always. And the other thing I circled here was making sure that, because I think council has said that we really want this fiber infrastructure broadband, that we fully contemplate that in what we're talking about with electric and the system in general. So anyway, so those are kind of just, I want to make sure to get those in there and make sure they're in our thoughts. Okay?
I don't think
Judith, anything you want to add?
Well, I just want to remember in the context of understanding our infrastructure need, which I think is very important, that I think the highest council goal is affordability. And so when we're thinking about how we're going to fund this in terms of what comes from taxpayers and, in terms of the utility costs and so on, I think it's important that we not lose sight of that. There's a lot of need, there's a lot of great, there's a lot of essential need, but I think the things that are, I think we're gonna have to really prioritize, and we're gonna have to be realistic. And we wanna try to find some way to help people who are struggling with their utility costs, et cetera. We certainly can't contemplate increasing costs on citizens. And that's why I kept bringing up, and I don't know how you fund these things, but that third, what's it called? The third circuit of the electric system, which is going to be a big cost, which is really, benefiting the future. I think we need to be thinking about how the future is gonna help us pay for it, and not think we're just gonna burden our current citizens and our current businesses to pay for those things. And I don't know how that works, but so that's all.
Good. Marianne, any last thoughts?
Just that we, keep in mind the process that we're starting here. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to play out. Keep moving, not pushing further off.
All right, thanks, everyone. Nope.
Need a motion to adjourn.
Well, I can thank everyone. for
Okay.
watching, right?
That's part of your.
And so I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
I always want to say no to that just to get the laugh.
Just to-
You can stay.